Come with me as we dive into Demrock, a game that absolutely dominated the global charts from day one. This virtual reality masterpiece conquered the global market, easily earning the title of Game of the Year. It was a legendary title boasting over 100 million users, though its popularity eventually tanked and the community's interest faded away entirely. And now, years later, the game is finally preparing to shut down its servers forever. At that exact moment, the system announces there are only 30 minutes left until the final shutdown. The dark-haired guy sitting by the fire is Kaiser, the undisputed #1 player in the world. Right beside him is Taste Purple Rank 5, admitting that while he saw this coming, he never expected it to actually happen. The Sword Emperor, ranked 4th, totally agreed, saying he had the absolute time of his life in this game. A white-haired girl complains that slaying dragons only dropped useless bricks, wondering how the game even survived this long. Totally triggers the Sword Emperor for completely ruining their emotional, tear-filled farewell moment. He doesn't get his anger since she was only speaking the absolute truth. When he disses her bizarre mask, she immediately snaps back and asks if he wants to throw hands. But pay close attention here, because our dark-haired main character steps up and instantly grabs everyone's attention. Staring into the flames with pure nostalgia, he says it is really sad, while a muscular ally turns to him with a warm smile, noting that Kaiser worked harder and studied this virtual world more than anyone, which everyone there respected. Felt like watching his legendary comrades fight was like witnessing a masterpiece of divine art. The white-haired girl teases that fate was actually fair, since Kaiser's luck was always the absolute worst. They all smile, remembering how the world's top player didn't possess even a single legendary tier skill. They laugh, recalling how he would scream that the universe hated him whenever his gear upgrades failed. They joke that, looking back, our dark-haired lead is actually the most dangerous monster here, laughter as they relive their epic glory days. Sword Emperor agrees it is mind-blowing how the strongest player turned out to be the unluckiest. Right then, a system alert pops up thanking all active players for sticking around until the very end. Their avatars start to glow, and they begin saying their final goodbyes to their old friends with one last smile. Even though they were smiling, deep down they knew this was the ultimate end of their epic journey. Hoping to cross paths in another grand adventure, the legendary warriors around our dark-haired protagonist slowly vanish from the room one by one. But look at this, guys, he just stands there, completely alone, watches the bonfire flare up, burning brighter than ever before his nostalgic eyes. Finally, his avatar pixelates and disappears. Very last player to log out, he brings an end to Demrock's golden era. Back in reality, our main character slowly takes off his VR headset. 2 whole years pass by, bringing massive changes to the world, while a green city bus speeds through the busy downtown streets. Inside, several high schoolers are riding along, including 2 guys glued to their phones, discussing some insane game controls. They are watching a gameplay breakdown of a mysterious solo player completely demolishing a high-tier demon lord. Both of them agree that the Executioner Guild's top ranker is easily the most lethal player in the world. They admire his guild's insane power, though they admit they prefer the Empress and her solo playstyle. One of them claims that absolutely nobody could ever beat her, but his friend is not so sure about that. The other reminds him that the absolute king of the previous era was actually Krizer, the #1 ranker of Demrock, though he sadly adds that the legend vanished when the servers closed, and nobody knows where he is today. In 2 years since Demrock ended, and the hot new game taking over is its sequel, Year of Savior, known as God of Savior. A massive open world boasting a larger player base, brand new races and unique classes never seen in the original game. This brand new universe became instantly legendary due to the total freedom of choice it gives to every single player. Sitting right next to them is a dark-haired guy in a military uniform, smiling as he thinks everyone should prepare because he is finally back. It is none other than Kaiser, the former #1 ranker, freshly discharged from his mandatory military service as a sergeant. His real name is Kong Dohee, and he can't wait to sprint home because he knows a very special package is waiting for him. Bursting through the front door of his house, he immediately shouts, asking where on earth his gaming capsule is. His sister happily greets him, But let's see what happens when he rushes straight to his room. Back. Today we are going to watch this guy finish his military service and go straight to obsessing over a capsule. Sprinting to his bedroom, he remembered how as a kid he only called for his mother, but he instantly wiped that thought away. His eyes sparkled with pure admiration, and his face lit up completely with excitement. Looking straight ahead, he could not believe his eyes. It was a real virtual reality capsule, and he ran to hug it tight. He could not process that, after serving 1.5 years in the army, he finally saved enough to buy it. Immediately, he started caressing it like a madman, obsessively touching every single one of its curves. And just like that, seconds later, he opened it up, because our black-haired protagonist could not resist any longer. Sitting inside, he noted that even though it was used, the cushioning felt amazing, so he grabbed the headset, ready to enter the new game for the first time. The exact moment he put it on, the system booted up instantly. The entire space around him turned a glowing neon blue, making him feel like his body was being teleported elsewhere. He announced that the iris scan was complete, starting identity verification and the final sync process. Just a few seconds later, the game declared welcome to the adventurer's paradise. First, the voice told him to create his own avatar inside a mirror room, where he wondered if he would really look like that in the game. Rubbing his head, he thought he looked way too military, and let us be honest, nobody wants to look that boring. So he started looking through hairstyles, but got bored so fast he just decided to pick one completely at random. Optimizing his appearance, the screen asked him to register a username, so the young guy stopped to think it over. However, he immediately dismissed those ideas and smiled confidently. He proudly declared that his name would be Kaiser, and instantly everything turned blue as the system confirmed his character was ready. After congratulating him on completing the registration, the system teleported him straight to the training ground, meaning that this very zone was the stage for the terrible battle of Erin Castle. Looking around, Kaiser was absolutely blown away by the level of realism in this immersive game. Immediately, the screen displayed several weapons for him to choose as his starting gear. Analyzing every option in detail, he realized none were spectacular, so he decided to stick with the weapon type he already mastered. With that in mind, he reached out his arm and, with a confident smile, pulled a sharp, glowing sword from the system screen. He remembered perfectly how he swung swords in Demrock. While inspecting his blade, he heard a mysterious voice and watched closely now, because a man was rushing toward him at terrifying speed. Knight Captain, a blonde man who yelled, asking him what on earth he was doing in such a dangerous place. But without waiting for an answer, he grabbed him by the hand and ordered him to follow him immediately. Charlie kept shouting to explain that the other mercenaries had already joined the battle. Just then, the screen notified him that he joined Charlie's party, and both ran forward without stopping for anything. Everything was burning around them amid loud explosions. Stepping into a building, Charlie's face filled with horror, while our main character tried to figure out the situation. Looking from behind the captain, he saw rivers of blood and an overwhelming pile of bodies scattered everywhere. The blonde knight muttered that they finally finished those creatures, who, according to rumors, made a pact with the monster. Looking at Kaiser, he warned that if they did not hurry to stop them, that evil beast would enter their world and destroy it. Throwing the doors open, he ordered the black-haired guy to hurry, claiming this path would lead them to their destination much faster. Ernest followed the orders in silence, trying to gather as much information as he possibly could, and so he kept following quietly. The moment they stepped through, a massive wave of arrows flew straight at them, landing at their feet and leaving Charlie completely shocked by the sudden ambush. Suddenly, a nasty sound echoed, and trust me, looking at what lay ahead made him grit his teeth instantly. After all, an enormous army of monsters stood before him, growling and showing off their razor-sharp fangs. Turning to our main character, Charlie was about to tell him they had to fight through with all their strength. There was no time, because the black-haired guy he was guiding suddenly charged right into that massive, dangerous army of beasts. One of the creatures in front reared its weapon back, ready to take out our hero with a single strike. And let me tell you, he was ready. Get ready, because you and I are about to watch this kid shut everyone up. Blonde Captain screams at him to watch out, genuinely worried, not about to give up that easily. Dead in his tracks, kicking up a massive cloud of dust, the monster misses completely. Does not even graze the dark-haired youth. The beast is totally confused because it was certain of a hit. Capitalizing on the monster being completely disoriented, our main character grabs his sword immediately. With one lightning-fast strike, he slices his attacker, sending blood spraying everywhere. But our dark-haired hero has no intention of stopping there. Instantly, he begins gathering his energy. He charges forward at a mind-blowing speed, slicing through monsters one after another. Does not give them a single chance. In the back cannot believe their eyes, and their fighting spirit completely crumbles. They are absolutely terrified. Suddenly, one of the closest monsters hurls its weapon with a loud roar, hoping to end this cocky kid. But with absolute ice-cold composure, our main character simply leaps backward to evade the strike, then launches himself upward with a powerful knee strike. Insane speed, the beast cannot react and takes a massive knee strike straight to the jaw. A ringing crack echoes through the air as blood splatters all over the place once again. Landing smoothly, our hero notices a couple of monsters right ahead, trembling in pure terror as they watch him stake like crazy while trying to load their crossbows. Our protagonist has zero intention of letting them live, surges his energy all at once, ready to pounce on them. In the blink of an eye, he closes the distance and delivers a devastating slash to finish them off, before pausing to look around. And him, the enemies he just sliced collapse to the ground, lifeless and drenched in blood. With a slick flick of his blade, the protagonist cleans the crimson droplets from his sword, as the metallic scent of blood fills the air. Smiling, he realizes he worried way too much about being out of the game for so long. Turns out he has not lost his touch. His footing with a few light hops, he notices his body feels incredibly lighter than usual. But Charlie breaks his train of thought, yelling about how utterly insane it is that the black-haired boy wiped out everyone alone. On cue, the system alerts him that the knight captain's affection level has just gone up. Thoughtful, our hero recalls that there was a very similar system mechanic in the game of Demrock. Do not remember it rising this fast after a first battle. You and I can see what the captain is thinking with this level of insane power. Could this boy be the legendary hero? Notifications show that affinity climbed so high, Charlie now places absolute trust in him and rewards Kaiser by boosting his stats by 2 points alongside that massive jump in affection. The knight captain throws his arms up, laughing out loud, shouting that thanks to our hero, everything was 1,000 times easier than expected. Gestures to the door ahead, stating they only need to take down the warlock inside to secure their victory. Suddenly, a violent blast rocks the chamber, tearing through the ceiling. Charlie cannot believe the summoning has already begun. A wave of pitch-black energy sweeps through the hall, destroying everything in its path with crushing pressure. Suddenly, glowing crimson eyes gleam inside the massive crater as vile growls echo from every single corner. Turning to Kaiser, the blonde knight shouts that he will handle these beasts while our boy stops the summoner. Unsheathing his sword and releasing his aura, he tells our main character that he has absolute faith in him. Massive force. He wishes him all the luck in the world before letting out a loud battle cry to unleash his power. Plunging straight into the gaping rift, our hero is left completely speechless, hesitating on whether he should actually go in there. This shift puzzles him, since in the video walkthroughs, Charlie was always the one who went in first. He knew player choices impact the storyline. He did not expect his actions to derail things this heavily. Approaching the entrance, that exact same dark energy cracks the stone floor right beneath his boots. But our dark-haired Kaiser could not care less about the imminent danger, proudly lifting his head high right in front of the massive wooden gates. And that is where we leave it for today. The system warns that only one can enter, and if he dies, the boss fully heals. Come along with me, because the moment those notifications chimed, he knew he found a hidden element. Essentially, it is a secret game mechanic triggered under specific conditions that yields absolutely insane rewards. Them asked him straight up if he really wanted to enter, but Kaiser was not about to waste such a rare opportunity. Without hesitating for a second, he proudly accepted. The door began opening. Kaiser braced himself, but stepping inside, ear-piercing screams echoed through the dark chamber. Suddenly, blood splattered everywhere, and looking up, he saw massive, terrifying fangs dripping with fresh red gore. His expression completely froze right then. What stood before him was not just some random mob, it was a nightmare. After all, it was impossible to take in that colossal, scaly body before him with a single glance. Right then, a flashing red system notification appeared. It was the iron-blooded demon dragon, a legendary tier boss. The danger was off the charts, but luckily, its skills and movements were heavily restricted. Our main character was completely stunned by the encounter, legendary rank beast standing right before him. The game inherited a lot from the old Demrock, keeping the same item categories common, rare, heroic, and legendary. Another massive similarity was the ranking system. 4 tiers applied to absolutely everything, including the bosses themselves. The most dangerous ones had unique names, classified as extremely rare, one-of-a-kind monsters, just like this dragon. Standing face to face with the beast, our protagonist realized this was indeed the ultimate boss. Now pay close attention here, because the dragon roared with such insane force it shook the entire cave. Stood frozen, locking eyes with the beast, as warning system alerts began raining down one after another. Deafening cry instantly debuffed his physical stats, speed, defense, and even his magic resistance. Kaiser was furious. This game had zero mercy, absolutely wrecking him the second he stepped into the dungeon. But then he remembered the dragon's true power was sealed, so he decided to go all out on offense. He knew a single swipe from those closed claws would send him straight to his grave. Things looked incredibly grim. Still, he compared this to his glory days in Demrock, knowing that in tough spots like this, only one option remained. His sword, his gaze changed completely. He knew perfectly well that rules here were incredibly simple, win or die. Suddenly, he felt the heavy atmosphere around him shift as a powerful aura flared up. The dragon lunged, but our main character dodged it cleanly with a side leap, landing firmly on his feet. Surrounded by a fierce energy, he rushed straight toward the giant beast's leg to land a lethal strike. He aimed for a precise slash at the perfect weak spot, and instantly the dragon shrieked in agonizing pain. The roar echoed through the hall, unleashing a gust of wind so violent it nearly knocked our dark-haired protagonist down. I know what you're thinking, is this the end? Looking back, his face showed true terror. He threw himself aside instantly, and a split second later, a massive impact completely shattered the stone floor. The shockwave blasted him back several meters, but keeping a cold gaze, he carefully analyzed the boss's weak points. Staring at the monster, he could not believe his 2 strongest attacks barely dealt 120 damage. Realizing the online forums did not lie, the difficulty of this challenge was absolutely absurd. Quickly gathering his thoughts, our protagonist lunged forward once again, going completely on the offensive. He started slashing the beast relentlessly without any intention of stopping, knowing that consistency was his only key to victory. Blood sprayed everywhere as our warrior continued chaining together one relentless strike after another. The dragon was not going to just stand there taking all that punishment, forcing him to retreat and defend until our hero managed to pierce its massive claw. The beast's roar shook the cave walls so intensely that small rubble on the ground began to float, and in that exact moment, letting out one final agonizing groan, the colossal dragon collapsed, gravely wounded. Him notified him that he was the first to defeat the legendary boss in the tutorial, recording it in his achievements. The hero could barely stand after pouring everything into that battle. His body completely bruised and aching, he could only think about how incredibly tanky that monster was. In his breath, he pulled his sword from the claw, thinking about the massive impact of being first. He knew no monster could ever stop him. And with that, we leave it here. What a legendary start. Come along with me on this journey as our main character remembers his old Demrock comrades with a nostalgic smile. He was genuinely curious to know how his old comrades were doing these days. Suddenly, the system alerts him that he gained the first Slayer title, and his stats begin to awaken. Weapon Master, Hidden Dragon, Hero, and Slayer, he reads these notifications with his jaw dropped. System also grants him the unique Eye of Truth skill, leaving him completely stunned by all these new abilities. Couldn't understand how he got so many powers from simple training, when people usually only learn one. Special traits, known as skills, are part of a very unique system inside this game. They come in all forms, from tracking functions that guide you to elite combat styles like the Sword Master. Depending on the player's achievements, much higher ranks are awarded, and our main character is absolutely speechless. Started closely examining every single one of his new perks, but his face completely changed at the very last one. Youth knew that swordsman and slayer skills were amazing, but at the end of the day, they weren't unique. Dark-haired boy figured that even if nobody had them together, seeing them individually was actually pretty common. Pay attention here, because he just unlocked the Eye of Truth, a truly unique skill in this entire world. A satisfied smile lit up his face. He was thrilled with this reward because it was an absolute jackpot from just one practice session. The main character managed to grab one unique attribute, 5 normal ones, and an insanely powerful title. He was understandably happy since his past life wasn't nearly this lucky, but a sudden noise at the door cuts his thoughts short. It was just a moment ago. His blonde companion had finished his own fight, gasping desperately for air after that massive effort, and once he caught his breath, dragged his heavily exhausted body straight toward the entrance where the dark-haired boy had gone just before. The battle was brutal and left him covered in bruises. Stepping inside, his eyes searched for his young ally, where that monster went after hearing such a terrifying roar, demanding to know if the beast was dead. Before getting an answer, he is shocked to see the boy has not a single scratch. With a trembling voice, he demands to know his identity. The main character remains silent, unsure how to respond. I know what you're thinking, but the knight didn't care about any of that, his origin, or who he truly was. Placing his hand on his chest, the warrior declares that true heroes always appear when the world faces its darkest hour, and that his presence in this chaotic reality is like a ray of light destined to trigger a massive change. Right after saying this, Charlie's face lights up, swearing he doesn't doubt their shared destiny for even a single second. He kneels solemnly before the boy and begs him aloud to let this humble knight serve as his loyal sword through all the adventures yet to come. Instantly, the system notification windows pop up right in front of him. Reading them, Kaiser can't believe that by accepting, this man would stop being a free knight to become his direct follower, losing all royal privileges. Suddenly, the system adds a massive detail: the man has actually been dead for a very long time. Because of this, he wouldn't gain any real benefits, even if he officially became his new master. That is when our main character remembers that this entire trial is just a recreation of the past. Knowing it's just a formality, he accepts with kind words. The warrior's face beams, and the system declares Kaiser his eternal leader within his memories. The alert also notes that the warrior's soul will finally be able to rest in peace. This notification deeply moves Kaiser, and out of nowhere, their entire surroundings begin to glow with intense light. Tim explains they are being sent to the Pantheon now. Nearby, a mystical portal opens, radiating an incredibly warm and welcoming energy. In that exact moment, Charlie looks straight at his new master, leaving the dark-haired youth completely puzzled by his gaze. With a confident smile, the brave knight asks his leader where they should head from here on out. He looks over, considering his options in this game scenario. Without a single moment of hesitation, and with an incredibly commanding expression, he declares they will go exactly where they are needed most right now. Kaiser proudly adds that the world is currently trapped in total chaos. Hearing his master's unwavering and firm response, "All right, you and I are about to see if this formidable young man is truly worthy of being a king." Our heroes step through the magic portal. Countdown to teleportation starts in just 5 seconds. They say their goodbyes, and right before crossing, Charlie hands him a mysterious amulet as a parting gift. The main character takes the glowing stone, staring at it in total and absolute confusion. At that exact moment, Sir Charlie smiles warmly, thanking him and speaking about the path of true salvation. Immediately after, the system welcomes him to the Pantheon, where he must choose his god and his destiny. Standing before a massive pillar stretching into the sky, the system prompts him to select his next destination. Looking around, he realizes where he is. It is called the Pantheon, but players know it as a card lottery. Joy and tears for thousands of players. This is where your divine calling is decided. You can only serve one god, and the final choice depends entirely on your class. In this world, everything is ranked even gods. Their hierarchy goes from legends to heroes to mythical deities. deities. Legendary tier gods earned their divinity through stories passed down from generation to generation. Heroic gods were legendary humans who ascended. And finally, mythical gods, the ancient creators of all known mythology. We are talking about beings like Zeus or the Norse gods. Naturally, the lower they are on the list, the higher their rank, and tells him to choose. He looks around, knowing his luck is trash, so there is no point in getting greedy here. But keep your eyes on the screen right here, because he spots a card glowing brighter than all the rest. Right then, his eye of truth activates automatically, reminding him that he can see right through the hidden. He finally realizes just how broken this skill is. He approaches the card, realizing that if this is real, he can rig any lottery from now on. Memories flash back of top players mocking him, calling him pathetic because of his terrible cursed luck. They told him his luck would change if he just waited. Back then, he thought that day would never come. He always laughed it off, but deep down, he felt nothing but bitter resentment. But with this new power, he can climb to the top again. He can barely contain his pure excitement, not hide his massive grin from ear to ear as he places his hand on that glowing gold card. He knows this is the obvious choice. The moment he takes it, the light flares even brighter. The entire room is completely flooded with an intense yellow light. The system alerts him that he got a mythical deity, the one-armed sword god, and asks for confirmation. A smug smile spreads across his face. Suddenly, the system alerts him that his apostle vessel has not been formed. I know what you are thinking, why can he not be Ty's apostle? The main character is just as baffled. Even the god himself seems completely thrown off by this unexpected situation. The boy has never heard of anything like this. Suddenly, the word vessel starts echoing in his mind. He remembers players usually lose to the dragon demon, which is when the goddess grants them a revelation. However, he actually defeated it, and the goddess never showed up, meaning he never received her blessing. Quickly pulls up his system stat window to investigate the issue, and there he sees it in the class section, where it should say apostle. There is absolutely nothing. Dark-haired protagonist is lost, as everything has gone completely wrong. Staring at the cards, he realizes they are useless now. Every single one will reject his empty vessel. He drops to his knees with a bitter taste of defeat in his mouth. He had waited for this moment for so long, and yet all his hard work was for nothing. Holding his head, he realizes deleting his character means waiting 60 full days. Suddenly his eyes snap open as he glances to the side in utter confusion. Right beneath his feet, he spots a mysterious red card radiating an incredibly creepy and dark aura. He leans down to pick it up. He has never once heard of a red rank card existing. It immediately alerts him that he chose a hidden card. He has selected Kazia, the last forgotten adventurer. And just like that, our main character realizes this hidden path changes everything. And trust me, he is ready. At the exact second, an intense red aura wraps around our hero's body, and the system alerts him that he obtained the legendary last adventurer class. He can use any skill without class limits, a power that can challenge the gods themselves. Our guy immediately plans to build the perfect skill tree, and you and I are about to see how this unfolds. Get ready to see how the Eye of Truth changes everything. Guarantees he can get any skill he needs. With weapon mastery added, he'll become the ultimate player, a beast with 0 weak points. And that's exactly what our main character is plotting right now, with a terrifying smirk. Him speaks class change complete, and the transfer to Avatarel is officially underway. The teleport starts, a sinister smile creeps onto his face. He has only one goal in mind. He knows this is his ticket back to the absolute top. Suddenly, the peaceful sound of birds chirping fills the air. The sky is perfectly clear as warm sunlight floods across the entire starting area. Our hero has officially arrived in Avatarel, right in Ada, the legendary starting city for new players. People are chatting and hyping each other up. Some are tearing up from pure excitement, while others realize there's way more to do here than just fight. Standing out in the massive crowd are 2 guys in suits, guild scouts looking for recruits. They're supposed to be scouting talent, but the players are treating them like annoying street salesmen. One scout nervously scratches his head. Desperately needs a recruit this month, or his bosses will absolutely destroy him. Just then, now pay close attention to this. One scout tells his buddy to look at our main character, thinking he's just a clueless newbie. What a massive mistake. They avoid eye contact and walk past, terrified that this poor guy might follow them around. Meanwhile, our main character checks his menu. just gifted him a heroic grade item. The stats on this thing are insane. He feels like he's on cloud 9. His luck is seriously off the charts today. Suddenly, another window pops up. The system drops an urgent scenario quest, wipe out the local goblin infestation. And this exact same notification starts flashing in front of every single person in the massive crowd and is in complete shock. And those waiting in line receive it. An official yells out, pleading with them to clear the pests immediately. Instantly, players scramble to recruit members and form party teams. No one wants to tackle a raid alone, and our hero watches as everyone frantically searches for allies. But his thoughts are cut short when a random group approaches him. They say they're grinding to level 12 and invite him to join for that sweet party experience bonus. I know what you're thinking, our solo main character joining a party, but Kaiser runs the numbers and realizes it makes sense. After all, clearing mobs is way faster with a team, and that multiplier makes grouping up the smart play. So he accepts the invite, and the party interface instantly pops up right before his eyes. The leader assumes our guy picked his name because he's a Kaiser fanboy, though the party's mage has no clue who that is. The archer quickly chimes in, explaining that Kaiser is the legendary #1 player from Demrock. The main character keeps his mouth shut, choosing to keep his true identity completely under wraps. After hyping up the server's former top dog, the party cheers in unison and prepares to head out. Kaiser awkwardly plays along, throwing his hands up too. Cut to the team arriving right at the active battlefield. Their tank slams his shield, successfully stunning the oncoming goblins for a brief second. With the enemies dazed, he barks orders for everyone to unleash their full damage. The mage and archer instantly fire off their ranged attacks. The moment their combined skills land, one goblin bites the dust. Their ally drop only drives the rest of the goblin horde completely feral. They won't take this lying down, lunging forward with pure bloodlust to avenge their fallen comrade. Multiple beasts slam violently against the tank's shield, forcing him to block for his life. Backline screams out in panic, fearing for their leader, while he desperately commands them to strike back. The damage dealers cry out for him to hold on, because all their skills are still on cooldown. Suddenly, a third goblin leaps high into the air, aiming a lethal backstab straight at the vulnerable tank. Knowing dropping his guard means fighting 3 beasts, and you and I are about to see if he survives. He won't survive this. For a brief second, you can see a smug, victorious grin on the goblin's face. He knows that in just a blink, it can rip this human apart without mercy. They're dead wrong. Stick with me, because those monsters forgot our main character was already airborne, ready to strike. He effortlessly takes down one of the attackers, leaving their leader in absolute shock at his terrifying speed and power. Right after the other 2 attackers realized what happened, they barely caught a glimpse, unable to believe their eyes, struggled to process how this newcomer could move with such unbelievable grace. But our hero wasn't about to stop there. He still had 2 targets left. In a flash, he lunged straight at the green beast, reaching them in mere seconds, giving them absolutely zero chance to defend themselves. Swift slice of his blade, he split them in half as the system confirmed the kills. The 2 companions watching from behind couldn't be happier with this insane outcome. Amidst the cheerful shouts of his allies, Kaiser smoothly sheathed his blade, rushed over to praise the dark-haired youth, calling his combat skills incredible. With a broad grin, he was about to suggest that at this rate they would clear the entire path with absolute ease. But there was no time. He suddenly screamed at his dark-haired ally to look right behind him, and instantly their expressions completely warped with dread. A massive horde of goblins poured from the forest, making disgusting noises with their hideous faces. They cackled amongst themselves, knowing their sheer numbers would easily crush these newcomers. The leader was about to call a retreat, but watch closely here, because our dark-haired hero had already charged straight into the fray. Completely ignoring his allies' shouts, Kaiser dashed straight toward the monster horde, ready to slaughter them all. The goblins couldn't stop laughing at the sight of a single man approaching, but at the very last second our protagonist leaped high, pulling his sword back. He unleashed a terrifying aura, fueled by the sheer determination to annihilate every single beast in that swarm. Absolute silence fell over the area, so quiet you could hear the rustle of the leaves. And later, a massive explosion erupted, sending a thick column of dust into the sky. Hero recalled when his friend called him reckless. Honestly, the dark-haired youth had no idea what his muscular companion meant. The big guy explained his health pool was dangerously low, and when a boss appeared out of nowhere, Kaiser attacked it immediately. Didn't see that as reckless, even if his companion couldn't grasp it. After all, Kaiser was the one who defeated the enemy. But his buff ally kept insisting it was too dangerous. In this horde, our hero wondered if this was truly insane. In the end, he figured he was just defending himself. Didn't need to risk his life in useless fights. And with those thoughts, he leaped into battle. Companions screamed warning after warning. The dark-haired boy ignored them completely. The only thing crossing his mind was that he never fought blindly. Kaiser always calculated his moves several steps ahead, weighing his odds. And right now, he was absolutely certain of his victory. That quiet before the storm was just an illusion for the rest, as agonizing screams soon echoed. I know what you're thinking. The shock wave was so brutal that everything before it felt like total silence. Blow after blow, our hero tore through the goblins one by one. Kaiser glanced back and spotted a final poison goblin. Planting his foot firmly, he braced to charge. With terrifying speed, he began to cut off the monster's escape path. From his extensive combat experience, he knew all too well that when facing massive hordes, it was best to take out the ranged attackers first. Down one by one. Blood splattered everywhere, filling the air with its metallic scent. Right then, his special breakthrough skill finally triggered. Hero's eyes flashed with a bright yellow glow. He sensed the incoming strike and blocked it effortlessly. As you'd expect, the goblin sniper never saw this counter coming. Shock washed over its face, but it vanished instantly as the dark-haired boy sliced through it. Moving at such breakneck speed, he couldn't stop immediately and slid for several meters. Another beast pounced on the young man while he scanned his surroundings, trying to exploit that brief opening. Trust me, this surprise attack didn't even graze him either. With a nimble flick of his wrist, our hero parried the blow. Then, raising his sword, he began channeling raw power for one final devastating strike. You and I are about to watch this goblin get absolutely destroyed in a split second. Right then, the system announces that his restrictions are lifted, granting him the weak point strike skill. And Kaiser absolutely loves this as he snatches the falling weapon right out of midair. Watch as our main character drives that very weapon into the goblin, triggering a weak point and critical hit at once. The goblin dies instantly. It rips a heavy wooden club right out of a goblin's hands, and the system alerts him that he gained the strike skill. The weapon flies high into the sky, leaving the monster completely defenseless. Stepping right up to his attacker, the dark-haired youth effortlessly disarms his opponent. Witnessing that insane strength and speed up close, the green-skinned monster freezes in pure, unadulterated terror. But it is already way too late, because a second later, a sharp dagger drives straight into its jaw. The main character lets go and catches the club midair, shattering the goblin's skull with a swift swing as blood splatters everywhere. Immediately, the system starts flooding his screen with notifications, upgrading his skills, which he thinks is amazing. He realized he can learn absolutely any ability without a single restriction. No idea he could use them right away on the spot. His face lights up with sheer excitement, because trust me, things are getting way crazier than we ever expected. Hero's party members watch the brutal slaughter completely speechless, and their leader has no idea how this is even possible. His mind is racing. Even a highly experienced party would struggle to take down a horde of goblins this massive. He just cannot wrap his head around this rookie clearing them all out completely solo. Staring at the dark-haired youth, he spots the nickname floating above him and senses an absolutely terrifying presence. Split second, Best Shield actually wonders if this guy is the legendary Kaiser from the Demrock era. He misses the thought almost immediately. Pure madness, since that legendary star player vanished without a trace 2 years ago and definitely wouldn't be on his team. Watching him, he only wonders who on earth this guy is, while our main character revels in a power far beyond his past game stats. Noticing his bizarre reaction, Best Shield assumes the kid has officially lost his mind. Suddenly, the weapon in his hand begins to glow, prompting him to drop it as it fades away into nothingness. Youth realizes that any weapons not obtained as official game loot will simply vanish. Smiling, he thinks about how he successfully bypassed every weapon restriction to test his skills, and he is thrilled with the results. Now pay attention here. Kaiser opens his menu and realizes he just leveled up 3 times in a single battle. Even though he is no longer locked into one weapon type, his main specialty is still the sword. In his strength and dexterity, he decides to dump his remaining stat points directly into perception. Also needs to hide the rest of his title, and of course, he can't forget about Charlie's necklace. Suddenly, his teammates run over, shouting about how insane he is, completely shocked that such a powerful player joined their party. The leader jokingly asks if he is actually the legendary Kaiser, but the archer mentions that the famous warrior retired long ago. Still, the leader isn't fully convinced, because watching his companion fight only makes him doubt his own words. They keep showering the dark-haired youth with praise, while he just smiles and rubs his neck, knowing he really is the true Kaiser. Suddenly, the archer asks if he owns a mythic tier item, since his damage output is absolutely insane. The main character replies that it is just his raw stats, combined with getting extremely lucky with his title. Hearing about the title, the 3 shout in excitement that he will easily become an official ranker in no time. They spend a few minutes chatting happily, while recovering their energy to keep moving forward. Then Leader Shield announces they are good to go and suggests they continue hunting down more monsters. The archer excitedly brags that he can take on 10 beasts at once this time, and with a grin, Kaiser agrees it sounds like a plan. Girl cheers that as long as Kaiser is with them, they have absolutely nothing to fear. Watching this unfold, old memories suddenly flash back into our main character's mind. He remembers his old comrades debating whether to push forward, always trusting that Kaiser would solve any crisis, wondering what they are doing now. But stick with me, because suddenly his entire body begins to tremble. An emergency quest suddenly popped up. A rare-grade mutant goblin had just spawned. Kaiser was completely thrown off by this unexpected event, since this quest shouldn't have activated yet. A bit later, the party arrived at the mouth of a massive cave. Standing at the entrance, everyone's shaking. Let's see if they actually have the guts to step inside. Our dark-haired main character already has this entire raid figured out. He knew that hunting monsters along the way had successfully leveled up the entire party. Looking into the dark abyss, he remembered why players call the dungeon the newbie grinder. Going in blind means certain death in this demo version of the Tomb of Arti raid. The Tomb of Arti, out of all its terrifying titles, not a single one offers any hope. Unlike normal trash mob goblins, this boss has highly complex mechanics that demand intense team coordination. That's exactly why this place is a total nightmare for rookies, and that's where they're heading. Pay attention here, even the veteran players outside are calling a solo run of this place absolute madness. In those grim rumors, one of the girls warned the party that a brutal path lies ahead. Commander refused to back down, knowing that retreating now would completely ruin their future raid prospects. Listening to the team's defenders speak up, Kaiser knew the guy was absolutely right about their situation. At the end of the day, top guilds always recruit experienced veterans over rookies, even in video games. Crafting materials, exploring new zones, and defeating bosses, everything was meticulously logged in the adventure manual. Every single achievement a player unlocks in God gets written directly into this special travel journal. Kaiser knew that clearing this brutal challenge was absolutely vital if they wanted to join the raid party for the next major city boss. They had to push through and conquer this, especially since the boss of the next zone, unlike the one in Ard, was a mandatory clear. That goal locked in, our protagonist led the way. Just a few minutes later, they came face to face with colossal doors as a system notification flashed instantly. They were standing before the terrifying goblin warrior's lair. With a confident smirk, Kaiser turned his team and told them it was time to move in. The group took a deep breath, trying to mentally prepare themselves for the brutal fight ahead, reviewed their winning strategy more than 10 times. A second later, a heavy silence fell over the entire party. Suddenly, strange noises echoed from deep within, but they decided to ignore them and focus on the task. The party leader stepped forward first, placing his hand firmly against the massive stone door before solemnly telling them it was time. His hand began to glow with a blinding light. Instantly, a pop-up window alerted the rest of the team that their leader was about to cross into the boss room. The system asked if they wanted to enter alongside their leader, and everyone immediately accepted without hesitation. And here's where it gets real good. The giant doors open. releasing a terrifying aura that'll give you goosebumps. Clenching his fists with a grin, Kaiser thought about how long it had been since he had a decent warm-up. Moments later, with the entrance completely clear, the team pushed forward immediately, keeping their steps slow and incredibly cautious. They were on high alert, but as soon as they stepped away from the door, the dungeon torches flared to life. At the back of the chamber, a sword-wielding silhouette appeared, the mutant goblin warrior with 20,000 health points. Just as expected, the boss detected the intruders in an instant, and a sinister grin spread across its face before unleashing an ear-splitting roar that shook the entire dungeon floor. Jagged rocks from the ceiling looked ready to crash down on top of them. Pure terror gripped the party as they faced their first elite boss, with some feeling this was way too realistic for a game. Kaiser broke the tension with a commanding shout, announcing he was diving straight into the fight. As the trio turned their gaze back to the boss, they saw the goblin already charging straight at them. Shieldbearer knew that no matter how strong Kaiser was, he couldn't carry them forever. They had to give 100%, wanted to lighten Kaiser's load, proving he had what it took to tank the massive boss's incoming strikes. The leader was going all out. Spotting an unusual movement pattern, he yelled for his squad to scatter immediately. Instantly, the three backline players leaped in opposite directions to dodge the incoming blow, leaving only the defender standing tall with his shield raised high. For phase 1, the shield break. Ducking, he dodges. Let us see if they survive this epic clash. Alright, let's dive into this fight where he smashes the mutant goblin into a wall, stunning it for 2 seconds. Seeing his chance, the leader orders an immediate attack, and the entire party charges in without a single second thought. The strike hits the beast dead on, triggering a massive explosion, and this epic battle is only just heating up. Let's dive in and see how this absolute monster's worst nightmare is just getting started. It eyes every single warrior standing in front of it. The moment they make eye contact, the tank gets instant goosebumps. Since he is completely frozen in shock, he fails to see the Goblin Titan's devastating strike coming. Luckily, at the absolute last second, he manages to raise his massive shield and block just in time. He activates his defensive skill to endure the boss's brutal onslaught, while desperately screaming at his allies to halt their attack. Right at that moment, our main character charges straight into the fray, unleashing a flurry of lightning-fast strikes on the boss. The beast roars in agonizing pain, but there is no break. More attacks are already landing. Another explosion shakes the area, kicking up a massive dust cloud and leaving the boss completely stunned. Seeing this, Shield smiles in relief because everything is going exactly according to his plan, and if they keep up this crazy pace, they will clear the first phase without any trouble. Now pay attention here, the archer screams that the phase transition is happening right now. Shield is confused, knowing the phase shouldn't trigger until health drops below 10,000 points. Suddenly, he notices something bizarre about the boss's behavior. A terrifying aura wraps around the beast, who tosses his sword aside, preparing for a devastating strike. Seeing the danger his ally is in, Kaiser leaps forward and throws himself directly at the goblin. Cleanly slices off the hand holding the weapon to save his leader, sending blood spraying absolutely everywhere. Rips through the air with overwhelming force, unleashing a scream of pure agony from the boss. That hurt. Leader stares in shock at the wounded beast before turning to his dark-haired ally, who protected him with ultimate coolness. Meanwhile, our main character simply stands there with a smirk. Phase is finally over. Later, a girl asks our dark-haired protagonist what his secret is, since his party was the very first to beat the boss, which the young man, sitting right across from the blonde girl, replies that they succeeded, because everyone excels at their own role. But she insists that a standard setup always requires a tank, a damage dealer, a healer, and a support player. It has to be 4 members. I know what you're thinking, how can anyone run a raid without a tank? Completely baffled too. Our main character goes quiet, not quite sure how to answer such a blunt and direct question. Usually, the tank has to face the boss head-on, read every attack pattern, and absorb every single lethal blow. It is an irreplaceable role, and that tank tank was actually him. The girl is stunned, but Kaiser is absolutely confident in his words. He is not lying at all. In fact, in the heat of battle, our main character is taking on that defensive role. Watching this play out, the party leader cannot believe his eyes. It looks absolutely and totally impossible. He thinks to himself that even pro tanks struggle to break patterns using crowd control skills. It makes it look effortless without any crowd control. It is insane for a damage dealer to pull this off. And while the leader gets completely lost in his own thoughts, the main character keeps hammering the boss, wearing a massive grin from ear to ear. Loves the combat adrenaline. Suddenly, he lands another perfect strike, sending monster blood spraying everywhere. Archer and mage watch in shock, noticing he targets weak points flawlessly, something they have never seen before. Meanwhile, the leader keeps his eyes glued to the boss's health bar in absolute disbelief. Suddenly, he notices the boss's health has dropped to 20%, signaling the start of Phase 2, so he orders everyone to prepare immediately for what is next. The team reacts quickly and readies for battle. System alert confirms health is down to 20%, and the goblin has triggered a special skill. Crimson aura completely envelops the monster as his muscles begin to swell up brutally. His size increases drastically as the goblin warrior state gets activated. All of his stats shoot up instantly, bringing the dreaded mutant attribute into play. Unlike standard traits, this mutation grants the boss incredibly unique and lethal abilities. And that's where you and I get hit with a seriously twisted game rule. It warns that taking physical damage 4 times in a row inflicts a devastating penalty on the entire party. And if they take magic damage 3 consecutive times, the damage will be fully reflected back at them. Get ready, because you and I are about to watch a total nightmare come alive. A terrifying aura floods the room, and the system slows everyone down by 4%. Absolutely no clue how to fight the boss, while carrying such a brutal penalty on their shoulders. But our main character, completely immune. Looking at the system alert, he grinned from ear to ear. These annoying penalties didn't even tickle him. The squad commander ordered everyone to stay calm. No reckless attacks, they needed to focus on dodging first. Glancing at the dark-haired youth, he frantically asked if those debuffs had hit him too. But Kaiser was completely chilled out, casually telling them to just step aside. Then, wrapped in an aura just as terrifying as the boss, he promised to end this goblin quickly in a chilling voice. Commander stood speechless, unable to say a word. Without waiting for his team's reply, Kaiser dashed straight at the boss. The mutant goblin warrior braced himself, ready to counterattack with full force. But watch this part very closely. Our main character blocked the strike with his blade, his cold eyes proving he would never lose. Accelerating to his absolute limit, he slid around the beast, unleashing lightning-fast slashes. His young teammates couldn't comprehend why those deadly debuffs had absolutely no effect on him. The squad leader was utterly baffled, wondering if this guy was the apostle of some forgotten god. Staring closely at him, he felt like the youth looked like an incredibly unique warrior. Watching him fight, the Supreme Shield leader thought the dark-haired boy resembled a literal god of war. Meanwhile, our main character was having the absolute time of his life. Blocked every single claw swipe with flawless fluidity, turning his defense into deadly counters and landing incredibly precisely. Every blow from the boss, he answered with a flurry of strikes. That was when Kaiser's name burned into the commander's memory. That name echoed in his mind when suddenly the boss shrieked in pure rage and agony. The goblin couldn't accept being humiliated by a lone human, but Kaiser had no plans to ask for help. He wanted this monster all to himself. He struck repeatedly, sending blood splattering in every direction. At one point, it seemed to coat the entire room, leaving a heavy metallic scent lingering in the air. You know what you're thinking, he looks like a beast. Yet his face stayed calm while his aura grew ever more terrifying. Right at that moment, Jim notified him of a level up, and thanks to level 7 sword mastery, his blade damage increased by 7%. So boosting his speed to the absolute max, he closed in. A second later, he was standing right behind the beast. The system alerted him that the boss's rage was boosting its damage by 10%. And at that exact second, the youth unleashed a devastating slash onto the mutant goblin warrior. A final roar echoed as the monster's body was ripped wide open. The shriek faded, and the beast collapsed, bleeding out onto the floor. The alert confirmed it. Boss defeated. dungeon cleared successfully. Companions couldn't believe their eyes, because a literal miracle had just unfolded right in front of them. With a trembling voice, the leader begged them to listen to his words about Kaiser, suggested in absolute awe that this might actually be the legendary Kaiser of Demrock. Friends couldn't buy it, questioning him in shock. They didn't wait for answers, staring open-mouthed at the dark-haired boy. At that very second, the main character stood victorious on top of the slain boss, gazing down at his comrades. The announced Supreme Shield secured first place in clearing the room, with Kaiser leading the entire mission. For this epic feat, they received insane rewards. Our dark-haired hero scored red leather armor, pauldrons, a greatsword, and the speed throne. On top of that, all of our protagonists' stats jumped by 5 points. Hearing this massive list of loot, the grin on Kaiser's face only grew wider, unleashing a terrifying presence with a devilish look, joked about shredding goblins like cabbage. Walking over, he let his friends examine their system alerts without interrupting. They were thrilled because they reached heroic ranks, and every single member scored the rarest loot possible. And that is where we leave it, thanking Kaiser, because honestly, they wouldn't have made it out alive. Alright, let's jump into this. They never even dreamed of getting these rewards, but our smiling main character credited it all to their help. Suddenly, the gruff voice of the squad commander completely cut off the pleasant conversation they were having. Stepping closer to the young man, he bowed his head and asked if he wanted to check the registered name on the leaderboard. He apologized because his own name was displayed on the list, guiltily admitting he should have changed it right from the start. But for our main character, simply snagging that #1 spot was already a massive privilege. After all, with an achievement like that, they actually stood a chance of getting recruited by a top 10 guild, even if it was just a beginner town dungeon. They etched their names into history, even shattering the record of the legendary Liquidator. The commander snapped the youth back from his thoughts, apologizing again for the trouble and promising to make it up to him. Hearing this, a faint smile crossed the dark-haired boy's face. Seeing that friendly look and speaking in a soft tone, he assured the commander it was no big deal. Ultimately, he understood perfectly that the party leader's name is automatically registered on the leaderboard anyway. He admitted he never expected they would actually secure the top spot. Now, pay attention here, he did not care about the leaderboard, because fame only brings trouble, and the loot was what really mattered. Thanks to this battle, he managed to gear up with a complete warrior set. We are talking the best possible gear for this stage of the game. Holding such treasures, he had absolutely zero room to complain. Suddenly, he let out a creepy laugh with a terrifying look while grabbing his head, spooking his teammate, who immediately asked if he was okay. The boy snapped out of it instantly, dropping his delusions and returning to his usual calm self, telling them out loud that everything was fine and asking them to please stop apologizing. They thanked him again, swearing eternal loyalty to Kaiser, whom they saw as untouchable, just as the system activated the exit portal, warning them that the session would end in just a few seconds. Mentioning that after reading the online posts about Kaiser, he thought everyone was just exaggerating, but now he finally understood who Kaiser was and what true strength really meant. Stopping right in front of the portal, Kaiser looked back and asked his teammates if they were planning to go back. They all rushed toward the blue light to avoid getting left behind, crossing the portal to officially end their game session. Shortly after, our main character materialized in the suburbs of Arda, with the other 3 party members appearing right beside him, amazed at how different the place looked by day, while our main character carefully scanned their surroundings. I know what you are thinking, but check out that suspicious hooded guy sitting all by himself at the tavern bar. It was Cal, a mysterious alchemist who harshly demanded to know what on earth they wanted with him. Ujin and the girl picked up on his heavy vibe, but the commander urged them not to judge anyone based on looks. Kaiser stepped forward to speak, but the alchemist cut him off, saying he hoped they were not giving up since he needed a ton of blood for his research. Right then, the boy slammed the blood flask onto the table, completely shocking the alchemist, who instantly recognized the mutant sample. Not believe they pulled it off, especially since Barely 40 minutes had passed since they left. In a few confident poses, the group proudly confirmed that everything was exactly as he thought. The man's face lit up with absolute excitement when he realized how fast they took down that beast. With this, the party leveled up, clearing the unrecorded tutorial trial and finally unlocking access to the main continent. Their excitement was off the charts because their true adventure was finally about to begin. Right at that moment, our hero received a special reward, though he decided to check it out later. Something else had caught his eye, the very thing he desired ever since the Pantheon the Summon. Suddenly, a low-rank summoning ticket materialized in front of him, and as he tapped it, brilliant bursts of light shot out everywhere. Several cards floated in midair, but to him they were nothing special compared to the ones from the Pantheon. Without hesitation, Kaiser instantly activated his Eye of Truth, charging his gaze with mystic energy, well aware that common tickets would not yield anything crazy. In the end, he obtained the Roar and Swing skills, both sitting at common tier, and that is where we leave it, with a cool skill he already mastered that we will soon see in action. Look at this. It wasn't about the legendary item ticket, but the system warning him about an unexpected limit. He was also warned about getting kicked offline instantly. Poor guy froze, buried under all these warning windows. Strict play limit, the system's way of keeping people from getting lost in God's insane, ultra-realistic world. Intended to save lives and prevent real-world exhaustion, our main character couldn't believe 10 full hours had already flown by. Suddenly, a 5-second countdown begins. The cards don't change color at all, making him break out in a cold sweat. The suspense is unbearable. Then, out of nowhere, the card glows gold, radiating a majestic, overpowering wave of energy. Grabbing the floating screen, the dark-haired Kaiser lets out an absolute, lung-bursting scream of pure excitement. Forces a mandatory logout, still floating right there in front of him, grinds his teeth in pure frustration. Couldn't believe his time had just run out on him like that. Slowly he managed to calm down, realizing he was back in the real world. Opening his eyes, he saw his room was completely dark and quiet. Staying inside his capsule, he replayed the moment. Pay close attention here. His face was twisting in deep frustration. Unable to hold back, he yells in disappointment, echoing through the cabin as a new morning slowly begins to break. Barely slept at all. Sitting in his chair, his entire body was literally trembling with sheer anticipation. Pacing back and forth, he stares at the clock until it finally hits exactly 10 a.m. Wait was torture, but the lock was finally lifted. Flings the pod open, ready to dive back in. Tim scans his retina immediately, verifying his identity and logging him right back onto the game's servers. Within seconds, our main character spawns back in, standing at the exact location where he was kicked out. Standing on the street, he eagerly opens his inventory, but that glorious golden glow is nowhere to be seen. Instead, a system pop-up alerts him that he has an unverified skill waiting. In his stash, he finds it. He wanted something legendary, but it's just a common tier skill. We're talking about the ultimate signature move for assassins, and a total nightmare for ranged damage dealers. No matter how far you try to run, this crazy technique teleports you right next to them instantly. I know what you're thinking. And yeah, that smirk means Kaiser is absolutely over the moon right now. He knew this made him the ultimate damage dealer who could shred anyone. One guy runs past and snatches something from a girl nearby. Meanwhile, our hero just stands there, totally spacing out in his own thoughts. All of a sudden, that light-haired guy locks eyes with our frozen, dark-haired protagonist. The couple stops to look, sensing his creepy glare and the dark, murderous aura radiating from him, convinced he's a total psycho. The girl begs her partner to take a completely different path. Spinning around, they sprint up the stairs, desperate to get as far away from this weirdo as possible. Watching them run off in absolute terror, Kaiser is left completely baffled by their bizarre reaction to him, but he doesn't let it bother him. He knew this was the perfect moment to equip his new gear. With this badass armor, he looks like a seasoned pro. Fully geared up, he heads straight for the main continent. The system warns him that once he makes the jump to the new continent, there is no coming back to Arda. Stepping into the portal, he feels a sudden wave of guilt for leaving without saying goodbye to his comrades. He realized he'd actually grown fond of them. Feeling a bit down, he hopes their paths will cross again, if fate allows. Emerging from the blinding light of the portal, he finally steps foot into one of the continent's major cities. Every player who finished training back in Arda arrived here, full of excitement and ready to start their true journey. Unlike the split regional servers in Ada, everyone here shares the same giant space, forming guilds and alliances. First major stop on this massive adventure was Raven, the first great city. Suddenly, loud shouts echo down the main street as guards demand the crowd make way. The Raven Knights escort a bound suspect begging for mercy, and trust me, things are about to get wild. Them notified him that new options were unlocked and his newbie benefits were expiring today. Wished him a great adventure, reminding him to report crimes. As he read through these notifications, Isa smiled with excitement. You and I both know the real game is finally starting on this new continent. Right as things kick off, a local guy approaches our protagonist to offer him some local beer. It was their pride and joy. Others joined in praising the food, making our hero realize everything finally made sense. He finally understood why hunters choose to put down their weapons and just relax in the city, slapping his own cheeks to snap out of it. He focused because the real fun had to wait. His muscles, the dark-haired youth got ready to hunt. Soon he was swinging his sword with massive power. The main character headed straight to the Raven Plains to hunt monsters and level up fast. The warrior gear boosted damage against goblins by 7% and added 2 points to all stats. This was the ultimate armor to fight them. The gear absolutely terrified the goblins, crushing their spirit and making them shake. Meanwhile, our protagonist made full use of his newly unlocked skills. Goblins and racking up points, his gear gave extra damage, making mob grinding incredibly easy. Thanks to all of this, his leveling speed increased drastically. Youth unleashed a terrifying aura that scared off nearby monsters. Finally, the system announced his massive red sword gained more power. He absolutely loved this gear set. Now he was getting even more bonus buffs. His excitement was off the charts, but unfortunately his luck wasn't going to last much longer. However, he noticed his quests were progressing slowly, and he had very little time left to level up. Here, he felt something weird behind him and used his eye of truth to spot a player sneaking up. In complete silence, this mysterious player carefully eyed our main character's epic warrior gear. Convinced he had found the perfect target, he gripped his weapon tightly and prepared to ambush our protagonist. Muttering a quick bon appetit to himself, he lunged forward to strike the dark-haired boy from behind. The very last second, he raised his sword to block. Instantly, the aura wrapping around him started to fade. The attacker didn't even realize what just happened. Suddenly, our hero glared back with a terrifying, bloodthirsty presence, asking what the hell he thought he was doing. The aggressor leaped backward to gain some distance, screaming in sheer panic, asking why everyone was just standing around frozen. You and I know the drill. Ordered them to kill the warrior, and an archer immediately jumped out firing magic arrows. But our main character deflected the spells with zero effort, casually swinging his massive sword above his head. Right after, a massive guy wielding an axe jumped in, ready to slice our dark-haired hero clean in half. He blocked the blow effortlessly, parrying the heavy axe straight down into the dirt, completely disarming the giant. Then, with a swift flash behind his back, he delivered a lethal slash, killing him instantly. The remaining two froze in pure shock at that insane display of raw power. Never expected this to happen, fully believing he was just an easy target. The killer refused to believe it, still convinced they were just dealing with some random newbie. Then our hero activated his new skill, instantly appearing in front of the runner, who stopped and looked up in pure terror. Staring up at that terrifying face dripping with bloodlust, he asked with a cold smirk if he was completely lost. No matter where you go, there are always rule breakers, and online games are absolutely no exception. I'm not talking about fair player versus player arenas, but the most ruthless, cold-blooded player killing. Basically, players who make a living hunting other players a massive problem in Demrock. In Goose, it's the exact same. Whether for fun, gold, or pure malice, they always find reasons. If you ask who the absolute worst scum are, 9 out of 10 will say gankers who rob newbies fresh out of the starting town, just like the trash standing right in front of our main character right now. It isn't the first time Kaiser had to deal with this trash, so let's see how he handles it. The black-haired ganker couldn't believe his opponent possessed a high-level rear infiltration skill. Couldn't fathom how a swordsman mastered that, but with no time to think, the system notified Kaiser of the kills. Since the victims were registered as villains, the system ruled our main character's actions as self-defense, so his karma level won't take a hit. Ultimately, it's clear Goose is exactly like Demrock, except for Artie and those sweet starter bonuses. Come along into his past. He recalled his first party in this game, thinking they were unusually kind. Reality was way worse. He was surrounded by pure trash. Main character got ready to collect the loot and claim his quest reward. Shortly after, the black-haired youth reached the West Gate, the dreaded western forest of Raven. He was heading a hunting zone so dangerous that even non-playable characters avoid it and warn you to stay away. Unlike the vast eastern plains, the view here at the Western Gates was completely different. Everything is covered in thick vegetation blocking your view, teeming with both goblins and massive hordes of giant insects and ambushes ranging from a lone goblin to entire swarms, along with surprise attacks from creatures hiding behind trees and rocks, waiting patiently for the perfect moment. The difficulty of the Western Forest is brutal, creating an unspoken rule in this creepy place. Every party needs at least 3 members. Pay close attention here. That's why crowds always gather at the West Gates, right where our main character ended up. Everyone looking for a specific ally. Some wanted help leveling up, others sought a tank or needed a heavy hitter. A trio of players desperately searched for a healer, wondering where they had all gone. The blonde guy explained that healers were rare because playing them is boring and leveling them up is extremely difficult. Big guy pointed toward the horizon, telling the group to look at our main character, walking completely alone. They called him a suicidal madman, dismissed as a cocky rookie. Others agreed, since even elite players grouped up due to the extreme danger. Staring at him, they couldn't understand what this black-haired kid hoped to achieve walking into that hell alone. Hearing those comments, Kaiser let out a deep sigh with a faint smile, and right then, he started tearing through goblin hordes everywhere, leaving absolutely none of them alive. Surrounding air already smelled foul, and now that nasty stench mixed with fresh blood. Goblins didn't just attack head-on, they tried to flank him, waiting for any mistake. Our main character wasn't number 1 for nothing. I know you guys saw this coming. He easily dodged those pathetic surprise attacks. One strike missed, and now the goblin was the prey. The monster slammed into the ground with insane force, bouncing and crashing repeatedly. Body shivered from the intense pain, unable to stand up from those brutal wounds, and nobody was sparing its life. So our main character stepped up and finished it off. Instant he finished the fallen enemy, 2 fast arrows flew his way. Instant reactions, he faced them. Gripping his sword, he managed to deflect the projectiles, leaving the goblin shocked after tasting victory for a split second. Black-haired youth glared at his attacker with terrifying eyes, releasing pure bloodlust. A second later, his sword flew straight at the archer, crossing the distance faster than the monster could even react. Blood immediately splattered everywhere as the enemy's bow fell uselessly to the ground, aimed into the tree trunk with massive impact, shaking the earth. Right then, the system deactivated his warrior set gear, and another wave of monsters appeared behind him. They let out mocking giggles, ready to pounce on the black-haired teen. Smirk, he summoned his weapon, knowing he didn't need a set gear for them. Looking around, Kaiser released energy to activate Backstab. Instantly, dense energy enveloped his body, launching the black-haired youth forward at high speed. One goblin sensed the danger and spun around quickly to look behind, but it was already too late. Our main character slashed down, slicing the red enemy, making the rest charge to avenge their ally. Exactly what he wanted, as he began slaughtering the monsters one after another. Screams of pain echo everywhere. You and I just witnessed an absolute bloodbath. Realized the axe in his hands felt incredibly natural. Meanwhile, the system kept flooding him with endless notifications about his kills. And just like that, the agonizing screams finally stopped. Pulled his sword out of the tree trunk, glanced at his system screen, and smiled. The journey was just getting started. Stick with me because a sudden violent explosion is about to snap him right out of his thoughts. Turning his head, he comes face to face with a terrifying beast that definitely isn't looking to make any friends. Foul, disgusting drool drips from its massive jaws, and seeing this absolute aberration, our hero's expression completely changes. Not thrilled about this at all. Suddenly, a deafening roar echoes through the forest, signaling the start of a brutal clash. Giant monster hunts our main character down, completely determined to swallow him whole in a single bite. Noticing the centipede slowing down, Kaiser stops in his tracks. Tired of running, he readies himself and lets out a wild battle cry. He spins around to face the beast, grips his sword tightly, and holds it firmly behind his back. Instantly, his eyes glow a bright crimson as a wave of uncontrollable bloodlust washes over him once again, and the monster freezes in confusion, never imagining a mere human could release such a terrifying, murderous aura. Moving faster than the beast can react, he slashes it effortlessly. Green blood splatters everywhere, driving the creature into a blind rage. Drooling as it shrieks, it slams the ground, kicking up a thick cloud of dust that forces him back several meters. Now pay close attention, because he stands completely still, waiting for his opponent's next move. The centipede lunges forward with that same disgusting, high-pitched shriek. Kaiser is genuinely surprised that a creature of this massive size can move at such a crazy, blinding speed. The beast right on top of him, he is forced to raise his sword, barely blocking the blow as he grits his teeth. He grows frustrated under the sheer pressure of the centipede, whose raw strength perfectly matches its colossal size. Pushing the monster back slightly, he quickly opens up his system screen. He summons the exact axe he used to slice up those goblins earlier. Honestly, he is just annoyed at how ugly this thing is. In a sudden opening, the young warrior lands a devastating, heavy blow, sending the disgusting creature shrieking in pain as it vomits blood. Not stopping, quickly throwing his sword over his shoulder, closes the distance instantly, and with one swift, clean cut, slices the massive monster in half, silencing its cries forever. Covered in its own dark blood, the giant beast crashes heavily to the ground. Jim alerts him that the monster is slain, leveling up his sword skill to 10, which also boosts his overall player rank. After 2 exhausting battles, he needs a breather. Honestly, wouldn't you also stop to check out your updated stats? His current level is now 19, having jumped up a total of 2 levels from just a single fight. Even though it was tough, our main character is leveling up insanely fast and has already finished almost all his main quests. Scanning the screen, he realizes he only has one normal rank quest remaining over at the West Gate. It does not look particularly difficult either, judging by his quick analysis of the details. After resting up, he heads back toward that familiar location, since his only task now is to go and claim his hard-earned reward. Shortly after, he arrives at a large crowd where a man is shouting at everyone to line up and stop wasting people's time. Several arguments are breaking out in the crowd, and our main character ends up right in the middle of one of them. Looking closely at the tree, Kaiser figures the pendant must have melted down in this exact crowded spot. Glancing around, he is relieved that the queue isn't miles long. Otherwise, he would have been stuck waiting there forever. Suddenly, hushed rumors about a hunt for the rookie killer catch his attention completely. Quietly eavesdrops on 2 men discussing how this infamous killer is officially a wanted man now. Both of them agree that he totally got what he deserved for showing off so much. One guy chuckles, adding that he overheard someone talking about the famous Kaiser. Our main character freezes instantly, completely blindsided by how his actual name got leaked so quickly. The armored guy brushes it off, but the blonde man keeps insisting there is a mysterious swordsman with deadly assassin skills. His partner just laughs it off as impossible. But hearing this, our hero realizes he needs to keep a low profile. You and I know a swordsman with those insane stats will definitely have top guilds hunting him down. Some, of course, will recruit him at all costs. Most will want to eliminate him as a future threat, especially since those guilds are packed with corrupt politicians. It is that simple. Do not have something, destroy it. That cruel rule still applies here, and soon after, our dark-haired hero recovers the mysterious lost pendant and says return it to Camila. What do you think happens? Ernest returns to Raven, thinking it was still too early. There he finds Camila, the girl from the quest, who is absolutely thrilled and thanks him for recovering her lost pendant, completed with absolute success. His rewards are 1 gold coin, experience, and a small gift from Camila. Thus, our main character just leveled up. Handing over the box, the little girl confesses it is her favorite item, but since Kaiser was so kind, she wants him to have it. Accepting the gift, Kaiser thanks her and tells her with a warm smile not to go losing her things again. Right at that moment, his maximum initial sympathy title activates, causing Camilla's affection for him to skyrocket instantly. The little girl says goodbye to her brother. Our hero leaves, pretty shocked by how fast affection rises in this game. Opening his system interface to check the next quest, he sees a reward that includes a special coupon and decides he cannot miss this. Right behind the west gate lie the two main dungeons of this area, the Ant Nest and the Goblin Boss Lair. Both places are considered terrifying zones. His goal is to build a warrior gear set. Hunting goblins is his best option. There is a huge catch. Both dungeons require a party, and it is too early to show strangers his unique skills. This is how, shortly after, our main character arrives directly at the goblin leader's lair. As usual, a crowd of players is looking to recruit people for their parties, especially damage-dealing mages. Some demand high levels, others buy junk for good prices, and a few are busy repairing worn-out gear. Seeing this, Kaiser is amazed that even the crafters gather in such a highly dangerous place. Suddenly, he notices an armored guy rudely rejecting another player, telling him that they do not accept bandits. Tension rises so much that a heated argument breaks out when another warrior steps in to make things worse. Nearby, a crowd surrounds a female mage, begging her to join them. Watching for a bit, Kaiser confirms everyone wants mages desperately. In this game, everything depends on boss attributes, making class inequality the absolute norm here. For this dungeon, a mage is basically a god, while a swordsman is seen as a useless nuisance. Suddenly, watch closely now, someone calls out to him, cutting off his thoughts. A young guy in warrior armor approaches him politely, asking if he would like to join his party. He explains that they are high level and only came for a quick quest, so it does not matter that he is a swordsman. Kaiser smells a rat but decides to play along for now. Feigning shyness, Kaiser replies that if they do not mind his class, he will happily join. On accepting the party invite, our main character immediately sees all of their levels. All three are level 24. In that split second, Kaiser understands exactly what is going on. They recognized him. That is why they approached him so politely to invite him to their team. Just moments ago, this trio saw him stand out with his epic armor and massive greatsword, identifying him as Kaiser. Sinister smile crossed the leader's face. Knowing they had a highly valuable target right in front of them, they went straight for him, all while completely hiding the fact that they knew exactly what gear he had on. Approaching him, they pretended to be friendly, rookie players looking for one last member to start the dungeon, and they deliberately ignored the fact that he was a simple swordsman instead of the mage they actually needed. Though our hero knows they are up to something, he accepts because he also needs to finish this mandatory quest. Stepping inside the dark cave, him alerts that they are entering the rare rank Goblin Boss Nest, and the team starts quickly clearing out the scouts. He notifies them that the boss already knows his guards are dead. Two of them whisper about how easy this is, while Kaiser quietly admits they cooperate quite well. Their damage output is respectable, and the coordination they show is actually pretty good. Shortly after, the terrified boss sends backup. You and I are about to watch a bloodbath as dozens of red eyes gleam in the dark. Repulsive monsters make the most sickening noises. Leo turns to Kaiser, casually suggesting he handle them alone this time, promising to save him if he struggles. They obviously want to test his limits. But you and I know Kaiser has a massive ace up his sleeve. No choice but to play along. Our main character charges straight at the beasts, gripping his weapon tightly, focuses his energy, and launches himself straight at them with incredible, blinding speed. He tears them apart from left to right without hesitation, painting the stone floor in a deep, dark crimson. This absolute carnage. Smirking in satisfaction, the two men confirm that this guy is definitely their target. They finally tracked him down. The commander asks his ally for his thoughts, and he admits Kaiser is actually pretty decent. He notes how smoothly Kaiser dodges lethal blows, moving incredibly fast for someone carrying such a massive greatsword. The leader mentions that with such high-tier gear in a low-level zone, it is hard for anyone to beat him. But his partner cuts in, calling it strange, leaving the leader baffled as to how their own assassin lost. After all, this guy does not look strong or fast enough to take down their partner. It makes no sense for an invisible poison-wielding assassin to lose a player versus player fight. Female mage coldly interrupts, stating none of that matters since their only actual job is to put him in the dirt. Putting all doubts aside, the commander smiles and agrees. Now pay attention here. because they are about to make their move. The tank raises his shield with a grin, asking if the fun is starting. The leader tells them to watch the kid and stick to the usual plan, not to worry. Meanwhile, our main character keeps hacking goblins left and right, painting the cave walls in rivers of blood. Approaching him quickly, the leader remarks with a smug grin that the kid is surprisingly talented. The rest of the squad notices his insane strength too. They came to save him, but he cleared the room entirely on his own. Kaiser casually replies that they aren't half bad either, as they fake a celebration over having such a high-tier warrior on their team. He knows they completely abandoned their teammate, and it disgusts him how shamelessly they act after trying to set him up. He knows they will betray him at the slightest oversight, and if he falls defeated, they will keep all his valuable equipment immediately. Taking a quick breather, the leader suggests pushing forward, claiming they have spent way too much time idling in this one spot while giving our protagonist an extremely unsettling glare. The leader silently vows to slit his throat the very first chance he gets. Sensing the pure malice, Kaiser's expression hardens. He is fully prepared, and taking him down won't be as easy as they think. Moving deeper in, the leader takes the lead, carving a path through the incoming goblins with brutal sword swings. A massive tank backs him up, crushing beasts with raw power. Suddenly, a blast goes off behind Kaiser, sending a goblin flying right at him. He barks at the mage, furiously demanding she fix her terrible aim. The trio assumes the kid just got lucky, since that spell was definitely aimed directly at his head. I know exactly what you're thinking, but watch this. Kaiser turned his back on purpose to make them miss entirely. Quick consideration, he decides to wait just a bit longer. Keeping up this pace, they reach the boss chamber. Instantly, the system warns them the Goblin King has locked onto their location. Wind blows. Ferocious elite red soldiers emerge to guard their supreme commander. These beasts are on an entirely different level. They're the absolute deadliest warriors in the clan. Spotting them, the leader screams at Kaiser to hold them off while they own his words, because the kid standing right in front of them has completely vanished into thin air. Looking around in pure panic, the leader screams in absolute rage, demanding to know where that bastard disappeared to. The tank panics, realizing Kaiser saw right through them, while the mage frantically yells for them to look ahead. Spinning around, the leader feels a sudden wave of deadly intent, desperately gripping his sword with both hands. At the absolute last split second, he barely blocks a crushing strike from a ferocious elite goblin. Their heavily armored tank gets slammed hard by another beast, forcing him to dig his heels in. Glaring at the mage, the tank roars that he will hold the line, screaming for her to cast her magic already. Redhead nods and starts casting a fire spell. Looking up, she watches in horror as a massive boulder flies straight at her. Instantly cancelling her magic, she leaps backward to dodge the deadly threat. Stares at the massive gates in absolute panic. Come along with me to see what happens next. You and I are about to witness one wild fight as a massive red leg stomps down, revealing a giant goblin boss. Sim identifies him as the rare dungeon boss, the goblin leader, while Tank screams for everyone to help distract the monster. But right then, the commander does not even have enough time to finish his own thought. He only spots the black-haired party member, who vanished right before those elite enemy soldiers showed up. The red-haired girl instantly starts screaming insults at him, demanding to know how this is even possible. Our main character walks up silently at first with his giant sword, but then mentions the assassin while releasing a terrifying aura. And the assassin he just finished off were actually close friends. As the others hold off the elite guards, the girl begs him to wait, admitting those guys were indeed enemies. He insists they must clear the dungeon first, saying they can only survive if they work together to fight. The main character replies that her plan actually sounds reasonable. She keeps talking about his wise choice, but with every single word she speaks, fresh blood spills from her mouth. Looking down, she realizes the black-haired guy has already run his blade straight through her chest. Now pay close attention to this cold look on his face. The bloodthirsty smile, he simply tells her he refuses. Tim alerts that he killed the player known as the Great Archmage, branding him a villain, but after some quick thought, he decides to strike from the rear, surprised to see himself spawn right behind the dead mage's body. The leader screams in horror, thinking the boy has gone completely crazy, murdering their only mage and assuming Kaiser wants to die with them, though our main character has other plans entirely. With a smirk, he asks if he knows his personal creed, leaving the man so confused he just yells back in frustration. Then our main character triggers his weapon summoning skill, declaring he won't tolerate anyone plotting behind his back, as a dagger dripping with pure bloodlust materializes in his hand. He explains that hanging around trash like them would only drag all of his hard work straight to the garbage. Seeing the weapon appear, the leader is utterly shocked because it is actually an assassin's dagger. He has no idea what Kaiser intends to do with it. But our hero smiles, seeing the commander recognize his friend's gear. The commander screams that this makes absolutely no sense, asking how a mere swordsman could ever use such a weapon, but quickly shakes off those thoughts, demanding to know what the hell Kaiser is trying to achieve. Because if he wipes them out, there is no way he can handle all these monsters on his own. I know what you're thinking, but did Kaiser actually know this boss has absolute defense against physical attacks? That is why mages are crucial here. And now our black-haired lad is just a nobody holding a basic little dagger. Without even answering the panicked, screaming commander, our main character calmly whispers the word status effect. Then, wearing a smug grin, he asks the man what kind of effect he thinks is about to trigger. Commander thinks he is totally insane for trying to kill him using a basic weapon's minor bleed effect. But our main character knows this situation is about to take a massive turn that nobody here could ever anticipate. Leader of this assassin squad is left utterly baffled by that cold reply and Kaiser's next sudden moves. Bursts through the cave at blinding speed, instantly teleporting behind the elite goblin to slash it with his blade. The system immediately alerts him that the stat gap is absolutely massive, and then the dagger's unique effect activates. Instantly, the man drops to the ground, clutching his neck as blood gushes out, making him cough uncontrollably. I cannot comprehend how this is happening, considering his level is vastly superior to our main character. After all, no matter how good Kaiser's gear is, he is only level 24, ignoring the massive stat gap. Kaiser knows better, since the wounded man does not realize he unlocked the bleeding skill using a level 20 coupon. In fact, even our hero is quite shocked to discover this terrible status effect actually stacks up. In Goose, just like back in the era of Demrock, same class status effects never stack together. A madman like our main character to combine deadly assassin weapons with thief skills. With a trembling voice while spitting up blood, the man still cannot understand what kind of cheap trick he fell for. And that's where we leave things, with this villain writhing in pain and calling our main character a dirty cheater. Come along with me to watch this cheating swordsman get wrecked, while the system officially brands him the villain he always was. Knowing these guys always use the same cheap excuses, suddenly a voice echoes right behind him. His tank shouting out, worried about his ally. Seeing the big guy's panicked face, our black-haired lead realizes he had almost completely forgotten that he even existed. Giant can't understand how they ended up like this, clueless as to when their perfect plan fell apart. In Kaiser's icy glare, he finally realizes he should have never involved himself, and running away is his only option now. Too late for that, though. In a split second, his own blood starts spraying everywhere. Just like before, our main character appears behind the elite goblin, holding his dagger in that same deadly pose. Dropping to his knees, the tank's health rapidly drains as a severe bleeding status effect is triggered. It alerts him that his level 3 status has plummeted below 10%. Clueless about what that warning actually meant, the big guy collapses onto the ground, exhaling his final breath. The system confirms the villain's death, rewarding our main character with bonus notification details for slaying an elite red goblin. Our guy quietly thinks to himself that the loot is actually pretty good, even though he wanted 15 more points in strength. Meanwhile, the enraged red goblin boss roars at the scene, staring shocked at his fallen army. Real danger is coming. As the beast screeches, the system announces that the goblin leader has entered a state of rage over his fallen minions, instantly shifts his gaze toward the furious screaming monster. Seeing him charge over with such pure rage, Kaiser realizes he had completely forgotten about the leader's existence. Right then, his eyes flash a deep scarlet, and with a sadistic grin, he thinks he's finally going to have some real fun. Suddenly, before even reaching our main character, that massive body leaps into the air, flying straight at Kaiser with deadly intent. This heavily amuses our black-haired lead, who channels all his strength into his legs to launch himself at the red-skinned monster. He lands a brutal knee strike. Devastating impact covers the goblin's face in blood, launching him flying backward through the air. The main character doesn't stop, continuing his relentless barrage and slamming the boss into the ground with a massive explosion. Suddenly, the black-haired boy's expression shifts as he spots something he absolutely didn't expect in this battle. Dust clouds shroud the monster, while the air around them stains with a thick yellow energy. The system announces the activation of the goblin boss's selfish defense skill. Aiming his bloodlust, our main character attacks once again. Blitzing past him at unbelievable speed, he delivers 2 incredibly precise slashes to his body. The beast coughs up blood, as the system warns his level 3 status dropped below 30%, triggering bleeding. Getting a very bad feeling, the red-skinned creature turns in absolute terror to look at the terrifying black-haired youth. You know what you're thinking. That absolute nightmare of an aura would terrify any of us. Our main character flashes a grim smile, declaring it is finally time to end this, completely breaking the weakened boss. Even though he is utterly terrified, the monster refuses to give up easily and roars loudly throughout his lair. In the very next second, he simply turns around and flees as fast as he can to survive. This doesn't surprise our main character at all, who immediately activates his skill to infiltrate behind enemy lines. Looking back to find the kid, the goblin is shocked to see nobody. But turning his head forward, he finds Kaiser already right in front of him. That exact same icy gaze capable of striking terror into any dungeon boss, Ruth asks the coward where he thinks he's going, while the boss's face displays nothing but pure horror. Sickening crunch echoes and blood splatters violently, completely staining the nearest stone wall. Boss collapses lifelessly into a pool of blood, while the system officially confirms a grand victory over the monster. The epic feat is recorded in the adventure log, and Kaiser officially levels up. His dagger mastery rises to level 5, and he obtains a leather belt, the exact gear piece he desperately needed. This instantly boosts his overall strength by 1 point and his health by 2 units. Smiling, Kaiser thinks that if this had a time limit, he definitely would have ranked among the very best on the leaderboards. But wait, before we go, let's take one last look back with him, because there's still a final reward. Alright, you and I are about to dive into an epic manhwa. Kaiser cautiously stepped up to inspect that valuable silver shield. Right next to it lay that bastard's training sword, a detail that completely threw our main character off. Thinking of his old commander, Kaiser figured the guy played hero too much, so now his title meant absolutely nothing. After closely examining the pendant, the young man figured he could probably pawn it off for a decent pile of cash. Suddenly a noise echoed. He instantly triggered his Eye of Truth skill and glanced over his shoulder. Staring off into the darkness, the black-haired teen sensed a bizarre energy that left him with just one question. What on earth was that? He thought it was hidden, but quickly realized the light was way too blinding. Stepping closer, the system suddenly notified him that he had discovered a secret dungeon, a black goblin shaman's lair. Out of nowhere, a massive portal materialized right before him, pulsing with an incredibly terrifying dark energy, and declared him the first finder, rewarding him with the legendary title of Expert Explorer. There are countless dungeon types, from party to solo, mazes, special, and even event ones. The rarest and most mysterious are always secret dungeons. Even pro explorers found them nearly impossible to track down since they hid in bizarre locations with ultra-specific requirements. He immediately locked in the entry conditions requiring a lone survivor and absolutely no party members allowed. This shocked him completely, since accessing what was normally a group area had to be done entirely solo. With such ridiculous entry rules, even if you stumbled on the place, it made zero sense. Now pay attention, because right at that moment, a system prompt popped up. Shelter was hero rank. Chance like this pass. Fried, player number 1500. always warned that stepping inside was like entering the mouth of a beast. Remembering that, our main character thought it sounded dramatic. Every single player felt the exact same way. But what did that warning actually mean? No one knew the beast's jaws would snap shut instantly, angry mouth biting down forever, dragging you into the dark abyss. This lethal secret dungeon was that exact open trap. In his very first step, the hero already imagined the monstrous beast lurking deep within the shadows. But that didn't slow him down a bit. He wouldn't be himself if he backed out now. The second he stepped through, a dense sphere of pitch black energy bolted straight for his face and pinged, warning him that taking a direct hit would inflict the annoying shadow vision debuff. Stuck under this temporary blindness effect, his line of sight was about to shrink drastically. Luckily, his hero passive triggered instantly, fully blocking the mental corruption and completely wiping out the debuff. I know what you're thinking, and yeah, Kaiser smirked at the save. Suddenly, a creepy voice spat at him for trespassing, sneered, surprised that this human showed absolutely no fear. Right then, purple flashes erupted, and our hero suddenly found himself surrounded by a massive horde of monsters, staring at them. The dark-haired youth immediately recognized these vicious minions of the goblin shaman. Even worse, undead spiders crawled all over the ceiling, making noises far more disgusting than any normal goblin. Looking over his incoming opponents, the young man braced himself against their utterly repulsive, grotesque forms. A sinister hooded voice mocked him, claiming the intruder was paralyzed with absolute terror before its beloved children. Suddenly, a system pop-up revealed his foe, a terrifying hero rank boss named the Black Goblin Jihad Black. Kaiser was taken aback, realizing the difficulty of these quests truly pushed all limits. Yet, looking at the boss, he smiled, remembering the insane loot he got from defeating the dragon back then. Couldn't wait to see the loot. Meanwhile, the cunning boss demanded to know how he uncovered his hideout. The beast even noted he lacked an explorer's essence, despite sensing many conflicting powerful forces swirling within him. Hearing this, our main character was genuinely surprised at how sharp this hideous monster turned out to be. Unleashing an overwhelming pressure, the goblin cackled with pure malice, screaming that he was a highly unusual specimen, and that it was a pity his life had to end so early. Instantly, every single monster in the dungeon woke up, channeling that very same foul, dark energy. And that's where we leave things today. Did you see that smirk? Ready for a real fight. Let's dive into this fight, because when you're up against a close-range specialist, getting careless is fatal. Goblin froze, feeling a human presence right behind him, and instantly reacted to activate his corpse control skill. Thanks to his sleight of hand skill, his speed shot up to an unbelievable level. Right after, he unleashed a massive wave of energy using a corpse explosion. Brutal blast kicked up a massive cloud of dust and wind, putting a smug smile on his face. A second later, that victorious grin turned to absolute terror as he saw what was coming. The monster quickly glanced at his allies while keeping an eye on the impact zone, because at that exact moment he felt an overwhelming, suffocating bloodlust coming from the man right in front of him. A terrifying smile spread across our main character's face. He was thrilled to find such a perfect spot to claim his bounty, immediately activating the bleed effect. Goblin checked his body in pure shock, completely clueless about when he had even been injured. Mocking him, our hero asked if he was surprised, reminding him that he had warned him already. Furious, the creature called him a filthy rat and started gathering spheres of dark energy. Don't blink for a second, because we're about to see if a mere human can survive this onslaught of deadly attacks that our hero dodges with insane agility. The beast wasn't going to stop with such a basic attack, unleashing more power by the second until a massive rain of black lightning completely swallowed up the exact spot where the boy was standing. Our main character knew exactly how to predict every single move, saw where it was aimed, where it would strike, and reading his face, instantly figured out his opponent's dirty strategy. Suddenly, several dark goblins lunged through the air, heading straight for the dark-haired boy. The leader let out a satisfied laugh, shouting that this was the end of the line for him. Him announced that boss Jihad Black activated his ultimate necromancy skill, Grand Corpse Explosion, unleashing a deafening roar. The despicable laugh. The monster sneered that his own arrogance had dug him this early grave. Gloating cut short the moment the dark-haired boy appeared right behind the terrifying boss. In a cold, mocking voice, Kaiser asked the leader if his skill was already on cooldown. Before he could react, he landed a brutal punch straight to his face, sending him flying through the air. Unable to regain his balance, the boss took the full hit and crashed violently against the stone wall. Spit and blood sprayed from his mouth, proving the young man's strength was absolutely lethal to this beast. Down the rock, the creature clutched his chest in desperation, struggling to catch his breath. He walked up slowly with steady steps, releasing a heavy pressure that seemed to suffocate everything around them. Gritting his teeth in rage, the beast called him a miserable piece of trash, swearing he would get his revenge. But our main character had no time for nonsense and threw another heavy punch that made him cough up blood again. I know what you're thinking, but our hero wasn't going to stop with just one punch. He began unleashing an absolute barrage of blows on the monster, giving him zero room to even try defending. For a few minutes of beatdown, the boss's squeaky voice begged him to stop and wait a second. Hearing such a pitiful plea, the young hero was actually taken aback for a brief moment. Raising his hands, the boss shrieked while trembling that his bones ached, begging him not to hit him there. Seeing that shaking body and hearing his cracking voice, our hero froze, doubting if this total coward was really the big boss. But then he remembered this was no ordinary enemy, but a boss with heroic rank. Kaiser analyzed that grand corpse explosion skill, figuring it was just flashy, but did very poor damage. Noticing our hero's distraction, the monster seized the opening to regain his composure in an instant. A second later, he leaped backward quickly, trying to open up some distance from this terrifying warrior. Of course, our main character reacted instantly, locking his cold gaze right on the fleeing boss. Instantly, the boss gathered dark power and called him an idiot for dropping his guard so easily before him. With a creepy smirk on his face, the system announced the secret dungeon boss was activating his genetic factor, knowing that once this process finished, his power would skyrocket drastically, and his rank would rise, leaving us to wonder how Kaiser is going to survive this. Imagine if a weak, pathetic mob suddenly leveled up to a hero plus rank. That would get ugly real fast. Gripping his sword, Kaiser knew fighting a boss of that level usually took a whole raid team, but he had no choice. That thought in mind, he took a massive leap and charged straight at the goblin. His strength stats surged by 20 points, breaking past 100. Instantly, the system triggered his warrior set, adding 7% goblin damage. Right then, our main character unleashed his fury, boosting his attack power by another 10%, and his sword mastery tacked on an extra 10% damage. Goblin stared in complete disbelief, while Kaiser knew that everyone was equal before the edge of his blade. Striking hard, his blade tore through the air with brutal force. A sharp scream echoed, followed by dead silence. Pinged, notifying Kaiser that he had successfully slain the secret dungeon boss. The dungeon was officially cleared, permanently recorded as a victory in his adventure log. Tim also congratulated Kaiser for his first clear, completely doubling his hard-earned rewards as a sweet bonus. He snagged the shaman robe, the wraith soul orb, and triggered a clean level up. Our main character was thrilled with these system upgrades. Though their effects were highly specific, they would absolutely come in handy. Then another system window popped up, hinting at the traces of a long-forgotten clan. No info on what it was or how to use it. Thinking it over, Kaiser immediately remembered Demrock, where he had seen similar mysterious items. After mulling it over, he decided to pocket it for now, trusting he would figure it out later. Now pay close attention, because he suddenly gets a mysterious, unidentified card that leaves him totally stunned. In this game world, cards were absolutely vital, holding powerful skills, buffs, and even bosses from the adventure log. Assuming it was just a monster card for some basic enchantment, he opened it, only to find the Black Jihad. This hero rank card allowed him to summon a protective guardian, though it would be consumed after one use. Guardian, true to its name, is a loyal creature that fiercely protects its master's will. Think of a fire mage's salamander or an alchemist's golem. Remembering his past, Kaiser recalled these examples with absolute wonder. After all, unless you had a legendary beast like a dragon, the one that buff old man used to carry around, standard guardians just drained your wallet without offering any real help. Announced the guardian was ready, summoning a tiny, pathetic little goblin. Level 1. Spotting Kaiser, the creature shrieked in absolute terror, utterly confused as to why this dark-haired human was still standing there, solid at the sight of the tiny monster, convinced this had to be some kind of sick mistake. Epic, high-tier monster, right? Ed Kaiser gets this absolute joke. On his knees, Jihad wept over becoming a human servant, thinking his new pet was an insufferable crybaby. Seeing the goblin's stat sheet, he was stunned even further, unable to believe his eyes. The system warned him that the guardian Jihad's loyalty was dangerously low, meaning he could betray him at any second, advising extreme caution. Staring at the system alerts and his new servant's face, Kaiser felt like the game was straight up mocking him. He knew he couldn't let this rebellious attitude slide. Brief moment of thought, our main character made his first move. Goblin slowly raised his head, asking in a trembling voice what the master wanted from him. Kaiser lost his temper immediately, demanding to know how he dared address him as a human instead of master. Leaning in close, he let out a deafening roar with a face so terrifying it completely broke the green-eyed creature's spirit. In his knuckles, he warned the goblin that for this horrible attitude, he would get beaten every single second. Instantly covered the little goblin's face. And trust me, as we watch him tremble in fear, our hero is definitely not joking around. Flashing a totally wicked smirk, Kaiser lets him know that class is officially in session, realizing he stands absolutely zero chance against a monster like him. Hear the screams and whipping echo through the dungeon, and bizarrely, the system announces the goblin's loyalty is actually going up. Talk about tough love. One final strike, our guy clears the secret dungeon. Stick with me to see what happens next. The moment he logs out of the game, his VR capsule slides open, up, stretches his sore muscles, and notices the sun has already set. Walking out, he yells to ask his mom if there is any food left, but his sister bluntly shouts back that she ate it all. Staring at his lazy sister on the couch, our main character groans, wishing he could just vanish from her sight. He flops down next to her and asks where their mom went, and she just mutters that she is stuck in a meeting. He glances at the screen, asking what she is watching, and she casually says it is a stream of gods. Shocked, he asks if she actually plays it too, and she rolls her eyes, saying everyone plays it these days. Before he can even process that, she casually drops that she is already level 71. Naturally, hearing that insanely high level completely blows our black-haired main character away. Brief silence, he mutters that she must have been grinding for ages to reach level 71. She shrugs and tells him she has only been playing for about 6 months and promised to carry her, but she got totally hooked and addicted. Lost in thought, he cannot believe it takes 6 full months to reach that tier, accidentally saying it out loud. She snaps back that she doesn't waste 10 hours a day gaming like some people, which is why it took her so long. Right then, a news report pops up about the Heroes Guild. Pay close attention here, because this group is going to be key. He has zero clue who they are, so she explains they are the most famous guild among the younger generation. Massive, they are almost on par with the legendary rankers. Kaiser asks why they are so famous when they are not even top 10, but she explains it is because they are gorgeous. And the leader of this crazy popular guild is Berzer. She adds that guys might love rankers, but girls adore these heroes. Looking at their leader, our guy thinks he looks way too soft. His sister totally disagrees, looking completely obsessed with the guy. She tells him his face is the peak standard of beauty, adding that our main character is as far from looking like him as the Earth is from the moon. This absolutely triggers our guy, who silently fumes that she seriously needs to go look in a mirror first. Standing up, the black-haired boy grumbles that he is going to go practice. He mentions their YouTube channel is blowing up, which surprises Kaiser enough to make him ask about the platform. Major guild has a channel now, easily racking up over 100 million views. Hearing that insane number completely leaves our main character speechless. Bombards her with questions, realizing that 100 million views must mean a mountain of cash. Means they are absolutely loaded, and his sister confirms his suspicions, says they make over 1 billion yuan. I know what you are thinking, that is a lot of fried chicken. Stands up, chanting 1 billion like a possessed man, which seriously creeps out his sister. Still whispering the number, he bolts back to his room, steps inside, and slams the door shut behind him. Left standing there bewildered, she genuinely wonders if her brother has finally lost his mind. Back in his room, he dives straight into his gaming capsule, already plotting his next big moves. Once inside, he decides to start recording his gameplay. Right on cue, a sleepy goblin appears, rubbing his eyes. Stunned to see his master, the guard accidentally speaks out of turn, making Kaiser snap at his insolence. Little guy immediately starts scrambling to make up excuses. But our guy tells him to shut up and throws a massive cloak right at him, ordering him to wear it since Kaiser cannot use it anyway, and the goblin could use some decent covering. Then the system notifies him that the goblin's loyalty just dropped 2 points. The goblin says receiving clothes makes him free. Trust me, we have to see what happens next. Suddenly, the main character unleashes a terrifying aura, clenching his fist while glaring at his guard. The goblin breaks into a cold sweat as the system alerts that loyalty rose by 2 points. Kaiser hates his attitude, but decides to let it slide for now. So let's see if Kaiser can actually pull off his insane money-making master plan. Started turning the cloak over and over, examining every detail with extreme care. Our main character tells him to put it on fast because precious time is ticking. Suddenly, he tosses a sword straight at the man clad in black leather. Dark figure snatches the blade right out of the air, firmly holding his master's weapon. Suddenly darkens with an intense, frightening energy. Only wants to train, but soon sighs in sheer frustration. Our dark-haired protagonist realizes this goblin's loyalty is as fragile as a thin rubber band. Gets dressed. Jihad asks his master where they are heading off to next, which the black-haired youth replies with a sharp smirk on his face to train, completely lost, and tries to ask, but has no time before a brutal battle instantly explodes. Screams, agony, and blood splatter echo through the dark dungeon as the system constantly alerts Kaiser of one victory after another. Looking at the carnage, Jihad can't help but pity these poor, miserable monsters. After all, they had the worst luck running into his master, a literal demon. Suddenly, Kaiser calls out, cutting his thoughts short. Little black goblin quickly runs over to his master sitting on a log, sort through the looted items, and turn the fresh corpses into the undead. Dropping his sword, Jihad obeys his master instantly. He steps up to a fallen red goblin and inspects the body closely. Raising his hands, he begins chanting a dark spell as dark energy starts swirling wildly around him. In an instant, the lifeless corpse of the goblin is completely swallowed up by that dense dark power. Some notification pops up confirming his guardian, Jihad Black, successfully resurrected the red goblin as an undead. Jihad approaches Kaiser, explaining he's reached his limit for now. The black-haired youth realizes this ability will be incredibly useful later on. Then Jihad turns back to his new undead servant and begins whispering in a completely bizarre alien tongue. Red goblins spin around and dart off into the shadows of the dungeon. Kaiser is caught off guard, demanding to know where they are going and what exactly he told them, and his loyal servant explains he ordered them to gather loot. The main character's expression completely flips when he hears this. He basically put them on chore duty to do the dirty work. Sighing, Kaiser wishes out loud to gain 2 levels and hunt down elites. After a quick pause, Jihad chimed in, saying if he wanted elites, he knew their exact hiding spot. I know what you're thinking. Our dark-haired lead was absolutely stunned to hear that. Seeing that reaction, Jihad explains those monsters are incredibly lazy, so they never move. Instantly lights up with greed. Couldn't believe several of them would actually gather in one spot. And so our duo heads off hunting for these elites, soon arriving right at the edge of their territory. Elite goblins sit huddled around a campfire, muttering in their strange tongue. Guard asks if those are the targets, and our lead replies with a wild, crazy grin, realizing this is a total goldmine. Looking around, he can't believe how many gathered here. Suddenly, a surprise quest flashes on his system screen. The Warrior's Trial rewarding a mid-tier skill summoning coupon with a strict limit of 40 hours. The main character gets completely hyped, dead set on finishing this quest. Unable to hold back, he charges headfirst right into the group of elite monsters. Wearing a terrifying, wicked smile, he screams out a loud greeting to the elite goblins. Spotting our hero, the monsters react instantly, unsheathing their weapons to clash head-on. The speed of their strike, Kaiser dodges effortlessly with a quick side hop. The moment he evades, he leaps forward, ready to strike back hard against his foe. The beast is shocked by the human's insane reflexes, never expecting an immediate counterattack right after a dodge, completely failing to guard itself from the oncoming strike. Our boy leaps back, the utterly destroyed and bloodied face of the red goblin is laid bare. The monster crashes hard onto the dirt, sending the remaining elite beasts into a furious, raging charge. Obviously, Kaiser isn't stopping at just one kill. Summoning his signature dagger, he charges straight toward his foes. And trust me, you and I are about to watch him shred them with a rapid-fire vital strike. In time, the bleed effect kicked in to finish them off, and a split second later, they collapse, one by one drenched in their own blood. Suddenly, another elite monster charged at our dark-haired hero, seeking revenge. They braced for the red-skinned beast's massive sword, and trust me, you and I are about to watch something legendary. Look at that. The goblin actually thought this one blow would finish our hero. He realized his ultimate move was completely blocked, letting out a roar of sheer, utter confusion. Before he could react, a brutal kick from Kaiser sent the beast flying backward. The heavy blow knocked his massive frame aside, leaving the creature coughing up blood in complete shock. With the monster overwhelmed, our dark-haired protagonist wasted no time, unsheathing his colossal sword with absolute force. Leaping high, he swung his blade, fully determined to land a fatal critical strike on the elite monster. Seeing the human looming above, the red-skinned giant growled with pure rage, preparing a swift counterattack. But our hero was not backing down. Right then, his eyes flashed with an incredibly intimidating crimson glow. Overconfident goblin found his body sliced cleanly right down the middle. Blood sprayed everywhere, splattering across Kaiser's face, as the monster's wicked grin twisted into sheer, absolute horror. Suddenly, a heavy silence fell over the area, leaving nothing but the thick, metallic scent of blood in the air. Watching this brutal scene unfold, our main character's guard realized that things were getting completely out of hand. Gritting his teeth, Black remembered the terrifying feeling he experienced back in that western forest. Pay close attention here. Black just realized his master isn't human, but a literal demon in disguise. Dark-haired hero slammed his sword into the ground, noting the boss should appear soon, when a system screen suddenly popped up. The alert notified him that he had located the Hidden Zone's boss, upgrading his quest to a Great Warrior's Trial, and that is how our protagonist finally came face to face with the fearsome goblin warrior Karuk, the named boss of the Hidden Zone. Seeing him, a dark, terrifying smile spread across Kaiser's face. To him, this beast wasn't a threat, it was just a massive treasure chest waiting to be opened. Gripping his massive sword tightly, he charged right in, aiming to defeat the boss as fast as possible to claim his loot. Incredibly powerful auras clashed in midair, causing absolute waves of energy to rip through the atmosphere. Jihad desperately screamed at his master to stop, warning him that at his current level, he had zero chance. Seeing the boss raise his weapon, he warned Kaiser that his own blade would shatter upon the very first impact. Right then, the system warned our protagonist that the boss was activating his devastating, ruthless strike skill. With a wild, beastly roar, the blue-skinned giant brought his massive axe down with all his physical strength. The attack came down at insane speed, but only hit dirt as the dark-haired youth completely vanished from sight, left the boss completely bewildered, unable to comprehend how his opponent had dodged so incredibly fast. I know what you are thinking, but Jihad was actually the only one who noticed what his master did. Our hero angled his blade to parry the axe, driving the force into the ground before looking up with a smirk. Incredibly satisfied, because this risky gamble had played out exactly how he had planned it in his head. Unfortunately for the boss, his initial confusion quickly twisted into a wave of deep, burning irritation. Unleashing a roar of pure fury, he raised his heavy axe once more, preparing for a brutal follow-up attack. But our protagonist wasn't going to stand there, swinging his sword forward and using its reach to halt the incoming strike. And so began a relentless exchange of fierce blows between the two warriors. Watching this clash of titans, Jihad Black simply could not comprehend the insane power display before him. Their blades collided with deafening force, yet incredibly, Not a single attack was landing on its target. Staring at our hero's determined expression, he realized he was executing perfect parries, deflecting incoming attacks with absolute millisecond level precision. Miss the timing for even a second, and you are finished. Ultimate skill for any swordsman, a broken ability capable of completely neutralizing even the most destructive legendary attacks. However, because the success rate is so ridiculously low, almost nobody actually dares to attempt it. Deflected, Kaiser thought he never expected to get such a broken skill from a low-rank summon. Some alerts kept flashing, but stick with me to find out what happens after that massive explosion clears the screen. Taking advantage of the dit's smoke, Kaiser appears behind Karoo ready to finish him, but the blue-skinned giant senses his presence, trust me. This ends in the most epic way, left completely shocked by this sudden appearance. Let's jump right in as our main character, wearing a total psycho smile, asks the boss if his skills are on cooldown. Drew roars in pure rage at his human opponent, flat out refusing to lose. Meanwhile, Jihad watches in absolute awe at the incredible level his master is showing off. The main character strikes with massive force. The boss's blood splatters everywhere as the system congratulates Kaiser for clearing this hidden dungeon. This epic achievement is logged in his adventure book, and at the exact same time our guy clears the warrior's trial, unlocking his reward. The loot includes 200 gold coins, experience points, 2 mid-tier summoning coupons, and the Karuk leather armor set. Obviously, our boy cannot contain his absolute joy over such incredibly useful rewards. Seeing that reaction, Jihad Black figures his master is back to his usual self, because honestly, he fights like a total demon. The second he starts opening those gacha cards, he turns into a complete lunatic, and his face says it all. Right away, the main character uses his coupon to summon a mid-tier skill. Suddenly, a bunch of skill cards float all around him in the air, and the first one drops the Rising Dragon Strike. This attack deals massive damage on impact. The second card is Accurate Strike, a rare pull. When used, it boosts physical attack by 40 points for 40 seconds. It is crucial for support classes, lasting 40 seconds with a 40-second cooldown. Basically, it boosts his strength infinitely. This technique literally turns normal sword damage into the power of a massive two-handed greatsword. Holding his head, he thinks this is amazing. A self-buffing warrior with a dragon strike. You definitely want to pay attention to this. Kaiser always wanted to try this. Perfect conditions are finally right before him. Suddenly, the system cuts his hype short to notify him about an unidentified item he has acquired, the Karoo leather armor set. Single piece ranges from rare plus to heroic grade. Naturally, our main character is absolutely thrilled with his new gear. His goblin rags vanish instantly, and the new gear takes its place. The system confirms he is wearing the Great Warrior set. Looking at himself, Kaiser notices that multicolored glow looks 1,000 times better than his old dusty look. Jihad praises his master's sleek new look, but shyly admits that sometimes the guy genuinely terrifies him to the bone. Turning around with a massive grin, the black-haired youth playfully asks if he is just imagining things. Confesses even he scares himself. Can't wait to see how far he can push this. Staring at his master, Jihad Black tries to figure out what kind of person he is actually dealing with here. Instantly drops the thought, though you and I both know this guy is an absolute psycho. Out of nowhere, the system alerts our main character that his guard's loyalty score just dropped by 1 point. The main character asks the goblin if he was just talking trash in his head, but the little guy frantically denies it. A murderous aura flares up. Drawing his sword, Kaiser coldly warns him that if he tries anything funny, he is dead. Jihad Black gets drenched in a cold sweat, waving his arms around and insisting that he got the message loud and clear. Tim lets our guy know the goblin's loyalty went right back up by 1 point, making him sigh in relief. He sheathes his sword and starts walking away, telling his loyal servant that it is time for them to move on. Following his lead, Jihad asks where they are heading next, and our main character responds without a second thought that they are hunting the next boss. Bowing his head, the guard slyly points out that, since they already took down the Great Warrior, he will do the exact same to all other rivals. Before he can even finish his sentence, he freezes, spotting a glowing system notification floating right in front of Kaiser's face. It states that to reach the next city, he has to clear the trial of the continent. Boss hunt begins. Western Forest is the domain of Eliza the Spider Queen, the terrifying enemy Kaiser needs to track down and face next. Inside the forest, a massive crowd of adventurers whispers about the imminent arrival of this terrifying monster. They have been waiting here forever, with 10 painfully long, impatient minutes still left to go. Everyone is debating where she will spawn this time, since she appeared over in the eastern nest last time. Some think she will spawn north or west. Just then, our main character and his guard blend right into the crowd. Turning to the kid, Kaiser asks if he knows the location Stay With Me to find out what he plans to do, to which Jihad replies no, because she belongs to a much later generation and is completely out of the loop. Let's watch how Kaiser sighs in relief, thinking he knows every single corner of this dense forest. Even Jihad Black himself looks completely baffled, staring all around him. The main character thinks the same, trying to guess where the boss will spawn, confident his backstep skill can get him anywhere instantly. Suddenly, the system alerts him that his hunter trait is active, revealing the field boss's location, the Spider Queen Eliza. Right ahead, our black-haired lead spots the glowing red silhouette of the giant arachnid. Seeing her, he tries to make sense of this, since they shouldn't have unlocked the Spider Hunter title yet. Suddenly, his expression completely flips, because only one explanation makes sense. Insane effect doesn't just apply to bosses he defeated, but to every boss in the game. Quickly shakes off those thoughts. It doesn't matter. Much bigger goal. A creepy smile spreads across his face as he realizes he can actually take down this boss solo. He activates his backstep skill, and in the blink of an eye, our main character completely vanishes. Check this out, the other players are totally clueless as a giant spider crawls around chanting her own name, Eliza. Right behind her back, Kaiser appears, flanked by his trusty guardian Jihad. Him immediately alerts him that they've encountered Spider Queen Eliza. Grinning, our guy is thrilled his skill actually worked. God himself can't comprehend how his master pulled this off and wants an explanation, but our hero tells him it would take way too long to explain the details. With that same creepy expression, he tells his guard to just consider themselves incredibly lucky. Staring ahead, he notes they're facing a literal giant, just as the system triggers the battle sequence. Screaming her own name, Eliza charges straight at our main character, determined to crush him. But our boy isn't about to let this perfect chance slip, prepping for battle immediately. Reacting in a split second, he dodges her lightning-fast strike with a quick leap aside. Suddenly, a surge of wild energy wraps around him as he smirks and teleports behind his target. You probably didn't see this coming. The massive field boss watches her opponent vanish into thin air. Sensing an overwhelming pressure behind her, she spins around fast, only to see a massive golden dragon rushing her down. It's our hero unleashing his absolutely devastating Rising Dragon Strike. Bonus triggers, racking up 6% extra damage while he sizes up the boss again. Cloaked in a brilliant yellow aura, he prepares to end this beast as quickly as possible. Insane power, he launches himself off the ground. Drawing his blade, he charges pure energy for a crushing impact. Then Eliza freezes in absolute panic, totally helpless against his speed. Wasting no time, our boy lands a barrage of precise slashes. Sprinting past the giant beast, Kaiser slides to a halt, but immediately pivots back for another assault. From behind, his eyes glowing bright yellow as he triggers his impact skill, instantly granting him a massive boost to his attack power. Unleashing raw power, he charges ahead. His massive body shakes in pure terror as our hero completely dominates her. Flashing right before her, Nist unleashes another Rising Dragon Strike, summoning a majestic golden beast to crush his foe. A massive blow smashes her head, causing a shockwave so violent the entire ground starts to shake. Green blood spews from her mouth as she shrieks in agony, her massive weight collapsing the ground and kicking up dust. Watching this unfold, Hero's guardian actually feels pity for the spider, thinking she's incredibly unlucky to cross paths with this demon. And later, our protagonist is already standing victoriously on top of the beaten spider's head. Opening her eyes, Eliza is met with a terrifying sight, her face twisted in pure, unadulterated panic. Radiating a terrifying aura, the young man coldly tells her he has absolutely no clue who this Eliza is. Clenching his fist, he mockingly asks if she'll cry for her when she dies. Terrified, the spider babbles names frantically, and that's where we leave this terrified monster. You'll want to see what happens next. Listen closely, because we are about to witness some brutal blows echoing through this dark dungeon. Watching this unfold, the main character's guard thought it was all just too cruel. Our dark-haired lead was mercilessly beating the massive spider right in front of him, giving her no time to breathe. Suddenly, Guard Black paused, lost in deep thought. He kept repeating the name Lisa in his head because it sounded so familiar, but a second later, his entire expression completely changed. He instantly screamed for his master to stop, and naturally, the main character turned around to look at his guard. The goblin jumped forward in sheer desperation, begging his master to stop, repeating those words over and over again. The main character was totally confused as he watched the goblin sprint past him at an incredible, shocking speed. Tears streaming down his face, Black gently stroked his boss's head, begging her to open her eyes. Crying out that it was him, he saw the massive spider barely flutter her eyes open to look at the tiny goblin calling her. Realizing she did not recognize him, the goblin pulled off his cloak, tearfully pleading with her to take a closer look. Boss Spider's eyes filled with tears, her voice instantly softening, so happy to see Black again. Now, watch closely as we travel 150 years back, with him walking alone through the forest. Suddenly he heard strange noises that sounded like actual words, and looking down, he saw a tiny spider repeating Lisa. The goblin was naturally shocked by this, picking her up to examine her closely, wondering if such a creature could actually exist. Thinking it over, the goblin cheerfully asked the little spider if she wanted to come home with him. The little spider happily nodded her head in response, the future dungeon boss squeaking with absolute joy at the offer. And just like that, a short while later, both monsters finally arrived at the goblin's cozy home. Sitting at his table, Black pondered the word the spider kept repeating, casually mentioning that Lisa was too simple, suggesting Eliza instead. Hearing his sweet suggestion, the spider could not contain her excitement, bouncing around while happily shouting out Lisa. With a warm smile, the goblin gently asked her to say Eliza instead of Lisa, but she stubbornly stuck to her words. The goblin told her to do whatever she wanted, but declared he would still call her Eliza anyway. Getting up from the table, he grabbed his cloak and headed out, explaining that he had to leave alone for some business today. The spider called out Lisa again, and the goblin knew exactly that she was begging to go with him. Throwing on his cloak, Black warned her that she could not come along because the outside world was just too dangerous. Opening the door, he promised her he would return very soon, saying goodbye with a gentle, reassuring smile. Here is the heartbreaking part that hits hard, the sad moment. This little spider waited for a friend who never returned. Day quickly turned into night. The moon gave way to the sun, but he was still nowhere to be seen on the horizon. No matter how many times the moon rose and the sun set, he never returned. Painful, loyal wait of 100 years. The long wait was so agonizing that even their little cabin slowly began to crumble away. Eventually, Eliza headed to the western forest where she first met him, repeating his name the entire journey so she would never forget it. Now they clung to each other, sobbing heavily, with no intention of holding back their deep pain. Kaiser pieced it all together, deducing his own guard was the one who abandoned Eliza, leaving the black goblin thoroughly shocked by the deduction. Even so, he wrapped his arms around the spider's massive body again, continuing to sob loudly, just like the boss. Meanwhile, our protagonist could not grasp why he hid all this time, since it was not a few years, but 150. Looking down, Kaiser's guard replied that he could not reveal the truth because it was strictly forbidden. Confused and frowning deeply, the young master simply could not understand what he meant by that. Nonetheless, the dark goblin lowered his eyes and apologized, and him deeply to ignore his master. Seeing that genuine reaction, Kaiser slowly stopped frowning. The young man stared in surprise at his guard's state, and looking away, asked what he was supposed to do now, since this was his graduation exam, and he was supposed to eliminate her. Tom thought Black had no choice but to accept reality. Suddenly, Eliza began to communicate something in her own unique language to the goblin standing right beside her. The little goblin's entire body shook, completely stunned by what she was suggesting to him right now. He suddenly yelled that he would not do it, but the spider remained firm. Seeing them argue, our protagonist stepped in to ask what was going on. Releasing a terrifying presence, the goblin glared at his master to warn him that the spider was about to explode. Our protagonist could not believe his ears and demanded answers, but trust me, we are completely out of time for talk. Today we are watching Eliza, stick to her plan while her guard tries to stop her. Suddenly, with a lightning-fast move, she bites down hard on her own jaw with her leg, spraying blood everywhere. Black screams the monster's name in sheer panic, while our main character stares at the boss in absolute horror, completely unable to understand what is happening. The system alerts the boy that Boss Eliza has poisoned herself, dropping her health to under 10%. Watching Eliza slowly slip away and lose consciousness, the goblin guard desperately tries to understand, whispers back, and the little guy's face fills with deep sadness, barely accept that the spider was making such a heartbreaking decision. With her very last breath, Eliza says goodbye to her old friend. Heartbroken, Black turns around and begs his master to strike her down as fast as possible, not understanding a thing. The guard pushes on, desperately screaming at him to pierce her with his sword because time is running out. Pay close attention to this heavy moment as our dark-haired hero asks his guard if he is absolutely sure. The goblin insists, shouting at the main character to strike now and promising him everything will be fine. For a second, Kaiser listens to his partner and draws his blade. Raising it, he asks one last time if he really has to deliver the final blow, and the spider nods. Just like that, our main character unleashes his strike. Blood splatters everywhere, and the system confirms the boss's defeat, adding that thanks to his absorption skill, all his stats increase by 6 points and a brand new achievement is unlocked in his logbook. Looking down at the massive spider's lifeless body, Kaiser asks his guard if they did the right thing, and the little goblin answers with a shaking voice that they did. And suddenly a strange sound echoes from the fallen beast. Then Kaiser spots a tiny spider, and the system reveals he found the hidden boss, Eliza, who was parasitizing the Spider Queen. Eliza's loyalty to the Guardian Jihad maxes out, and the system asks Kaiser if he wants to recruit her. Our main character is stunned, shocked to realize she was actually a parasite. Back in the Demrock days, these special bosses existed and almost never died on the first try, constantly jumped from host to host, which was incredibly annoying for every single player. But our hero is amazed that such a creature would join him willingly after unlocking another guardian. I bet you and I agree this reward is crazy. And looking at the screen, Kaiser sees how useful Jihad actually is. He remembers the little guy collects ground loot and finds hidden areas. Red-faced, Kaiser realizes he did not just get a simple guard, but a total treasure. Jihad Black breaks into a cold sweat, feeling an overwhelming presence right behind him. Turning around, he sees his master making a choice, sensing that something very bad is about to happen. Suddenly, the spider escapes the goblin's hands and, in 2 leaps, lands right on our shocked main character's shoulder. She starts speaking in her weird monster language, which of course the boy cannot understand at all, translating for his master that she is saying thank you. Brief pause, the former dungeon boss continues communicating something to our dark-haired hero. First guard steps in again, explaining that the spider wants them to follow her out of gratitude. The main character is intrigued, having absolutely no idea what kind of reward is waiting for him now. The spider insists, and they both follow her, going deeper and deeper into the very depths of the dungeon. Soon after, she leaps back onto the young man and starts chattering away in her dialect again. Goblin happily translates for his lord, saying that Eliza says they have finally arrived. Realizing she means a nearby entrance or exit, Kaiser decides to take a step forward. Crossing through, the system alerts him of a secret location, where our main character sees a massive horde of spiders waiting. The interface notes this is a queen spider breeding ground, and a split second later, blue window flashes warning red, alerting him that these are field boss hatchlings. Right then, our hero remembers that his graduation quest actually requires him to defeat a field boss. So you and I can see that this goes beyond Eliza, as she was just the start of our ultimate goal. Get ready, because the entire outcome depends on whether our protagonist defeats Eliza. Looking around, he realized how easy it would be to crush them, and a smirk crossed his face, releasing a terrifying aura, ready to test his limits right now without a second thought. Without wasting a single second, he charged straight into the spider nest with incredible speed. The field bosses weren't going to stand by, charging straight at him with pure fury. Our hero, as usual, dove straight into the battle while his eyes glowed with a fierce scarlet light. The moment he stepped into the monster horde, a massive explosion kicked up a thick cloud of red dust. The dust settled, the black-haired youth appeared, slicing through spiders left and right without mercy. Blood splattered everywhere, staining the stone walls, the floor and the ceiling with a glowing green hue. Eliza whispered to the little pixie with deep concern, and he replied grimly that she was absolutely right. After a brief hesitation, the pixie admitted his master was insanely strong as the sounds of battle slowly faded. Spiders collapsed one by one, and the system notified Kaiser that he successfully cleared the first trial, completely destroyed the hidden field boss along with 34 regular bosses, earning system praise and a glorious S rank for reaching 1,500 points. He was the first to achieve this during the initial trial, securing the absolute first place on the leaderboard. Interface showered him with titles like Top Graduate and First S rank, boosting his stats by 5 points. Suddenly, the spider leaped right on top of our protagonist, completely interrupting his victory celebration. Eliza, admitting that her appreciation went far beyond his expectations, squeaked in annoyance, and Jihad translated that Eliza was not done showing her true gratitude yet. Naturally, the black-haired boy was baffled and stared at the spider, which was still trying to communicate something. Looking at Jihad, he understood everything when the pixie pointed up, indicating the grand prize was right there. Staring toward the hill, Kaiser immediately activated his Eye of Truth to inspect the designated area. Vision focused, he spotted an intense crimson glow, and the system notified him of a destiny fragment. Bet you are thinking the same thing. His expression completely shifted when he saw this. Meanwhile, a massive crowd gathered near the cave, assuming the Spider Queen was hiding right inside. Since it was her final spawn point, a man yelled at them to stay calm and stick to the plan. Had to defeat Eliza quickly and meet in Bayonne, making the excited crowd roar, determined to claim victory. However, that massive excitement would be short-lived. When the system announced Eliza's defeat, nobody understood who killed her before she even made an appearance. They thought some powerful guild beat them to it, until someone suddenly screamed in terror, telling them to check the real-time leaderboard. The boy announced that the current leader's achievements showed the elimination of the Spider Queen, Eliza herself. Everyone began screaming in despair, demanding to know the player's name, convinced it had to be some cheater. In a trembling voice, the boy answered that his name was Kaiser. By that point, our protagonist had already reached the mystical red stone, holding it directly in his hands. He muttered to himself that this fragment would let him unlock the highly anticipated class quest, the Legacy of Destiny. Black happily congratulated his master, celebrating that he would finally get a real job as an actual adventurer. But Kaiser had no desire to celebrate and sat on the ground, completely lost in his own thoughts. Dark-skinned Pixie couldn't understand why his master was so downcast, so he decided to ask him directly. The warrior confessed he had a bad feeling, leaving Black confused because, trust me, this reward is absolute madness. That reward was the legendary relic of Kaziar, which left Kaiser in absolute shock. The pixie screamed in excitement that this relic would finally match the server's top players, but Kaiser immediately snapped back. After all, the risk of failure was absolutely immense. All right, you and I are starting with an insane penalty fail this, and his class is wiped, leaving him as a mere NPC. Putting his head in panic, he screamed about losing every single bit of his progress, but then he suddenly froze in sheer terror. And that leaves us with one massive question: what actually happens if he loses his class? Let's see how Jihad screams at his master for doubting his loyalty, while Eliza loses her temper too. The goblin asked if he was just baiting him, secretly planning to betray him and run the moment his class vanished. In Jihad, Kaiser stood up, thanking him for being honest and deciding to accept the quest just out of spite. Right on cue, the system popped up with the official quest details. He had to pass a trial to prove he was worthy of Cassiar's legacy. Smirking, our guy figured if he beat the Iron Blood Dragon, this would be a breeze. Convinced it was finally time to get moving, the boy accepted the quest, swearing to crush any monster in his way. Right then, he activated Cassiara's card as a hidden item. The man gasped in utter shock, unable to believe the apostle of Cassiar himself was standing right before his eyes. Bowing, our protagonist confirmed that everything was correct, and his title as Cassiar's apostle, asking for a blessing. But before he could even finish, he got an unexpected splash. Won't believe this, the guy dumps water right on him, sending our main character into a total rage. The man yelled that he was a pathetic apostle for daring to step into this holy place looking so filthy, and with that he walked out, slamming the door shut behind him. Kaiser kept yelling for his reward, but got dead silence and to leave. Convinced Cassiar had completely scammed them, mentioning Cassiar's name turned the place into pure chaos. As the priests panicked, our black-haired lead was left completely in the dark. Double-check his class description one more time. Cassiar was the god of war, lord of Abartel, feared by other gods, the sole true deity, and a former adventurer. And gods feared him. To these priests, he must look like the devil himself. A smirk crept onto his face as he processed this. Talk about an insanely unusual situation. When accepting the quest, our main character thought he'd just face some elite monsters, but man, was he dead wrong. Terrifying boom startled Kaiser, making him yell. Suddenly, a literal storm of weapons began raining down all around Jihad. Couldn't wrap his head around what was happening, or why swords were falling straight from the sky. Pointing forward, he screamed at his master to look closely, because something insanely dangerous was about to go down. Get ready, because the system just announced the war god Cassiar's awakening, and we have to watch him survive 5 whole minutes. Unsurprisingly, our main character didn't believe the system screen until he reread the notification with his own eyes. Shocked by this sudden turn of events, he realized this wasn't just some standard elite boss, but an actual literal god. Glancing up at the 5-minute survival goal, energy immediately surged into his hand. Complaining wouldn't change a thing. Time to act right now. A glowing sword materialized in his grip. Smirking confidently, he claimed surviving 5 minutes would be easy, but his face suddenly dropped. Kaiser boasted that this quest would be a piece of cake, locking his eyes onto the massive opponent. Meeting that terrifying gaze, a violent shiver ran down his spine as cold sweat poured down his face. Staring at the beast, he froze. It was pure, raw intimidation, and his body completely refused to move. Felt as if heavy chains were binding his entire body, while Cassiar slowly stalked toward him, aimed desperately at his master to get ready. With Eliza doing the exact same, his guardians couldn't understand what was wrong with him, asking in panic why he was staying so quiet. Our main character was pushing himself to the absolute limit, struggling to understand how he got paralyzed like this. Glaring at his foe, Kaiser couldn't comprehend why his heroic skill wouldn't trigger until the system alerted him it was disabled. This wasn't even a status effect. Couldn't believe an enemy could project such a monstrous pressure without using any active skills. Grabbing Eliza tightly, Jihad ran for his life, screaming that their master was already a goner. Naturally, this completely set Kaiser off. He refused to accept, feeling terrified of a mere pile of game data. Throwing his head back, he roared, demanding the game stop playing with him. Hearing that roar, Jihad stopped, looking worriedly at his master. Trust me, you and I can't wait to see what's next. Alright, you and I are about to watch our epic main character grip his sword and point it straight at this dark-haired god. Smiling, he shows us he has been through way too much garb in life to ever feel intimidated by anyone. Walking closer, Jihad points straight at his master's legs. Summon mocks his shaking knees, and Kaiser snaps back, telling him to shut up because he is just trying to look cool. Jihad just grins, wishing his master the best of luck. Looking at the war god, Kaiser admits those skills are useful, but furiously yells that the penalty for failing this quest is pure madness. Outraged, our hero swings his sword around, screaming that losing everything over a single mistake makes absolutely zero sense. Kaiser keeps complaining, leaving the legendary god of war standing there looking completely lost and confused. Nowhere, Kaiser bursts into tears, crying about how hard it was to get his loot, while Jihad whispers to Eliza that their master has officially lost his mind, whining that he finally got decent clothes and normal skills. thinking he was finally going to be fine. But right at that moment, Jihad cuts him off, yelling at his master for talking to himself. He raises a finger, reminding his little goblin that he only has 1 minute left. Realizing what that means, the goblin gives a thumbs up, still totally convinced his master has completely lost his mind. But watch closely right here, because he has a genius plan. Goblin backs up his lord, confident that if they can just hold out, they will escape this place alive and victorious. Suddenly, Kaiser leaps and throws his sword backward. Bud screams in sheer terror, completely baffled by his master's bizarre move. Our protagonist planned to wait for the perfect opening, striking from behind the moment the enemy dropped his guard. Gritting his teeth, he expects a massive hidden reward for winning, so he waits until the final second to unleash his surprise attack. In that exact moment, a faint smirk appears on the face of Cassia, the god of war. Spinning around, he grabs the kid by his throat and starts choking him, leaving Kaiser wondering why his skill failed. Accepting defeat was proving to be incredibly difficult, but regrets are useless now. The god slams him into the ground with enough brutal force to collapse the entire dungeon. The loyal goblin cannot believe his eyes and screams for his master, while Eliza starts panicking right along with him. As the dust clears, Kaiser lies unconscious and bleeding. His guardian Jihad stands frozen, completely paralyzed with fear. He is too shocked to even take a step, only able to desperately scream out his master's name. As he lies there, you and I both know exactly what he is thinking. Absolutely terrified of losing everything. Suddenly, a truly sinister smile spreads across the face of the god of war. He raises his free hand, and Kaiser instantly knows he is about to deliver the final crushing blow. It was incredibly hard to accept defeat like this, but there was literally no other option left. Closing his eyes, he braces for the worst, but then feels a hand gently grabbing the collar of his shirt. Opening his eyes, he sees Cassia simply fixing his clothes, before suddenly pinching and stretching his cheeks and ears in a funny way. Our hero starts laughing hysterically from the tickling, while the legendary god of war literally sits on him, playing around. Suddenly, the god stops, looks closely at the young man's face, and sticks his tongue out in a very weird way. Kaiser holds up his hand in alarm, asking why he is sticking his tongue out, and if he has some inappropriate intentions. Jihad screams with absolute joy that the mighty god of war has finally acknowledged them. Ernest is totally lost, so his summon explains that sticking out the tongue is a sign of ultimate recognition. Looking back, he sees the god smiling. Then the massive deity makes weird noises while shaking his head aggressively. Translates immediately, explaining that the god is asking if he will inherit his legendary divine will. The young man jumps with excitement, shouting that it is all true, while making all kinds of weird dramatic poses. The goblin translates that the god congratulates him for being the very first human brave enough to challenge him. The god hesitated at first, wanting to kill him as unworthy, but their wills aligned at just the right moment. In the end, he decided this was enough. Still wonders how on earth Jihad is able to understand the god. Him announces that 5 minutes have passed, and Kaiser enters the path of the wind instead of the apostle. Just as Jihad translates that the god will give him a relic, he reaches into his pants, and trust me, you and I are not ready for this. Naturally, our main character was left completely horrified by such an incredibly bizarre display. The god kept digging around his pants. Kaiser frantically screamed at him to stop, saying there was no rush. His voice cut off the moment a blinding glowing object emerged, and things are about to get wild. Get ready, because you and I are about to watch Kaiser lose his mind, screaming that this is not that kind of game. But the god of war had zero plans to stop, slowly pulling that weird relic out of thin air. Our main character snapped and called him a complete psycho, completely shocking the god as the blinding light finally revealed the artifact. Black nervously asked what he was plotting, while Kaiser stared blankly, unable to comprehend where this device even came from. Firmly grasping the ancient relic, Tim notified him that he had obtained the legendary god of war artifact called 1,000 Changes. Kaiser was not thrilled about this reward at all. As the god bid farewell, our main character wondered why he felt so absolutely miserable despite getting an epic prize. Jihad quickly warned him that their time was up, and they needed to get out of there immediately. Suddenly, a magic circle flared beneath their feet, and a moment later, everyone plummeted into the abyss, screaming in terror. As they free fell, Jihad desperately begged his master to save both him and Eliza. Kaiser was completely lost, but outside of that stone dungeon, everything was dead silent. Do not blink, because this is where our heroes suddenly blast right out of that portal with a deafening screech. Following the rough landing, Kaiser's guards lay on the ground, completely incapacitated by intense motion sickness. Them welcomed them to the City of Promises, making Kaiser extremely grateful they did not spawn in some desolate wasteland. All of a sudden, he caught a strange whisper from a distance and immediately focused on it. Turning around, he spotted an old man muttering that destiny awaits, even before the day of prophecy. The main character's guard instantly warned him to stay on high alert. Feeling the terrifying power radiating from the old man, Kaiser leaped up and unsheathed his sword, ready for combat. The moment the grey-haired elder saw the blade, he dropped to his knees, bowing deeply and saying he had been waiting, introduced himself as Gillian Adron, the loyal guardian who accepted the heir's will from the very beginning. He revealed he had served the royal line forever, waiting for this, while Jihad yelled that he knew this guy was special. Kaiser glared at his loud guard, but suddenly the system chimed to announce the start of an exclusive class quest. Kaiser needed to hear the erased history of humanity to finally unlock a piece of the game's main storyline. Think about that for a second. 1 billion active players had absolutely zero clue about this secret lore. In the legendary King of Adventure, Barian, after searching endlessly for an entire year without any luck, declared this game had no main plotline. Yet here was our main character, holding it right in his hands. Elder Adrian noted that his sudden arrival meant he had already met face-to-face with Lord Cassiar. The elder requested permission to share the ancient chronicle every heir must know, and after a brief pause, Kaiser agreed to listen. The story began in the year 1045. An era when humanity possessed absolutely massive potential. Their collective strength grew so immense that they eventually seized one of the 5 supreme thrones of the world. But right as they claimed ultimate power, they were invaded by the very same hypocrites who rule over everyone today, the gods. Jihad could not help but shout in disbelief. Wait, the gods were actually the villains? Kaiser immediately hushed him up so they could focus on the lore. Fleeing Ragnarok after their own worlds collapsed, these gods sought to conquer Abad, triggering a brutal war for a brand new homeland. A full third of the continent lay in ruins, but the tide of this relentless battle was finally about to turn. One sole warrior, the mighty war god Cassiar, charged directly into the heart of the enemy forces. He successfully crushed 4 mythical deities, and victory seemed certain, until something sinister ruptured from beneath the ground. A dark race, born from the fury of the fallen, crawled out from an impenetrable shadow known as the Abyss. Both gods and humans fell to this corrupting blight, reanimating as horrifying monsters in a literal living hell. The entire world was on the verge of being swallowed whole. Facing total annihilation, they made a desperate pact to sacrifice all of humanity to their new rulers just to survive. Just like that, humanity lost all its potential, turning into nothing more than weak, powerless servants enslaved by the gods. Lord Cassiar was instantly sealed away, and the gods even began to manipulate and use players from other worlds. By dragging them here, they destroyed their very essence. Trust me, you and I cannot miss what happens next. Kaiser, completely caught off guard, tries his absolute best to say something important, demanding total silence to concentrate. After a harsh blow to the head for his cheek, Kaiser finally realized how this nightmare truly began. Meanwhile, Jihad kept staring intensely at Kaiser, thinking he was an incredibly annoying guy. The main character cursed his luck, realizing this mess happened simply because he failed to choose a decent shooting zone. Kaiser was still registered as a mere adventurer, instead of the legendary apostle who conquered the dragon. The eye of truth led him straight to Cassiar. For him, this was clearly a twist of fate. He began to reflect on how vastly different he was from ordinary players with apostle potential. The gap existed right from the very start. Now pay attention here, the elder interrupted, revealing they waited patiently for nearly 1,000 years for the prophesied heir to finally show up. Looking down at his hand, our protagonist could not understand the sudden wave of excitement swelling in his chest. Were waiting for him. Only player with the main quest active, this path felt designed solely for his personal journey. Covering his face, he realized he was making history again. joking that being this awesome was actually a bit of a problem. Instantly, a system notification flashed across his screen, announcing that the main storyline was now active. Opening up a brand new quest tab, the old man explained his duty was to collect all the scattered fragments of destiny, 10 fragments in total, and to his absolute shock, the young man already held one. He wondered in disbelief if it was the item Eliza gave him. Continued, explaining that after those bitter, grueling negotiations, Lord, losing all hope of appearing in this world, right before his confinement, he took one final risk to save humanity. Gathering his remaining strength, he extracted the very core of his power. Due to the power of the seal, the artifact was scattered across the world, and only a complete destiny can bring it back. Day destiny is unified, the seal will shatter. When this day comes, our fragile humanity will find itself in mortal danger. Only by assembling every single piece can they hope to stand against those terrifying creatures. Kaiser demanded answers about that promised day. The white-haired man refused to speak, since the pact strictly forbade it. In deep thought, he asked where to find the other pieces of destiny, learning that one of them was recently spotted in the Bryan region. However, before that, Cassiar left a special favor for his heir. Thinking his predecessor was an awesome guy, our protagonist was thrilled by this news. With a faint smirk, the old man then asked him to wipe out a few monsters. 1,000 would do. Naturally, the protagonist was stunned, asking him to repeat it to make sure he heard right. But before the old man could reply, the system popped up, registering the quest to slaughter 1,000 beasts. He absolutely could not reject it. To make matters worse, the system gave him a 60-hour limit, warning that failure meant losing both the quest and his class forever. Hero fumed with rage, annoyed that this always happens to him, but the elder assured him this trial held a much deeper purpose. Gritting his teeth, Kaiser thought that a crazy guy like Cassiar would definitely pull a stunt like this. You were probably doing the math too, right? For this, in 60 hours, he had to slay a beast every 3 minutes. Meanwhile, the old man tightly clenched his fist and wished him the absolute best of luck. But our main character interrupted him with a shout, demanding to know where those beasts were, though the old man gave him no reply. Turning on his heel to start sprinting, Kaiser instantly realized he was in some incredibly deep trouble. After all, the monsters in Bryan were way stronger than those in Raven, and he had to massacre 1,000 before even getting used to the area. God suddenly cut off his internal monologue, asking why on earth he decided to hide such a highly valuable item. The young man had no idea what he was talking about and asked for a clearer explanation, and the goblin clarified that he meant that long, thick, and powerful weapon Cassiar pulled right out of his own pants. Kaiser furiously screamed that it was called 1,000 Transformations, telling him to never describe his weapon in such a weird way again. Deeply, he gripped the artifact tightly, and you and I are about to see exactly what this weapon can really do. In his stats, the black-haired guy was completely stunned to see his mythic rank. It was the first time he'd ever seen anything like it. In 3 years playing Demro, and even while in God rank, he had never once heard of anything higher than legendary tier. Opens up the system to explore this new power and find out what he's truly capable of doing now. Come with me, this artifact absorbs other weapons and copies them. He added that his level was too low to unlock its full potential, adjusting the weapon stats to Kaiser's liking. In thought, black-haired boy muttered about it being a growth-type weapon, focusing on its ability to consume other gear. Later on, he headed into the forest of cursed rocks, only to realize others had arrived first. One man aimed his bow, letting an arrow fly, but it sailed right past a massive muscular green beast. Still, the noise grabbed the monster's attention, making it turn. The archer panicked the second that green-skinned beast spotted him. A single drop of sweat rolled down his face. The moment the monster locked eyes, its face twisted, roaring in pure rage as it charged, until a sudden heavy blow struck the back of its skull. A massive explosion echoed, sending up bursts of fire. Clutching its head, the creature tried putting out the flames on its scorched skin. Turned out their mage had cast the spell. The mage screamed at the orc to burn, giving their swordsman the perfect opening to charge ahead with everything he had. Pay attention here, because after a clean slash to its back, blood sprayed everywhere. But a split second later, the swordsman was already eating dirt. The beast had retaliated with a brutal strike before getting back on its feet. Their warrior yelled to launch a coordinated assault, and after a grueling, messy struggle, they finally managed to bring the monster down. Drenched in blood, the giant green brute collapsed, staining the grass crimson. Gasping for air, the party discussed how tough the opponent was, while the mage bragged that his magic saved the day. Relieved, they agreed that this long journey to Beyond had definitely been worth the effort. Swordsman grinned, boasting that no other group in these woods could match their high level of training. Those words boosted everyone's spirits, prompting proud laughter to break out among them. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed, and they turned to see our main character walking calmly with his companions. Watching him, shocked, he was wandering around unarmored, thinking a stray monster guard could ambush him at any second. I know what you are thinking. His gear looked totally basic, and after hesitating, they called out to Kaiser. Wearing smug smirks, they walked over to ask if he was actually out here alone. Our hero turned, sizing each one up. With a confident grin, he answered yes, joking that he did not have a girlfriend to tag along yet. His reply brought a dead silence, but slowly the grins crept back onto their faces. A minute later, the entire party burst into loud laughter after hearing his comeback. Dismissing him as a clown, they joked about this clueless rookie getting separated from his squad while making fun of the ridiculous wooden club he was carrying. Suddenly, our main character sensed a threat approaching. Turning around, he spotted another massive orc. Yet another emerged right behind him, and both beasts started boxing the black-haired teen in. Kaiser calmly watched the beasts close in. He was not exactly thrilled, since he wanted to chat a bit more before finishing his quest. Those monsters had absolutely no intention of letting that happen, so they lunged straight at the black-haired youth with clear intent to kill. Instantly, his weapon, Thousand Changes, began to glow intensely, gradually shifting into the form of a training bastard sword. In the blink of an eye, our hero leaped forward to close the gap. He had no time to waste, swiftly slicing down every single orc. Fresh blood sprayed everywhere, painting the forest floor bright red. In that exact moment, the party's expressions froze. They could not believe their eyes, completely stunned by this impossible feat. Bewildered, the leader stammered, asking what just happened, desperately hoping his eyes were playing tricks on him. Staring blankly at our main character, they all found themselves wondering who he actually was. The very kid they had just mocked stood calmly before them, holding a powerful, commanding battle stance. Brown-haired adventurer questioned his own sanity, muttering aloud that a simple wooden stick had just turned into a real sword, failing to believe such magic existed. Meanwhile, another enraged orc was already charging fast toward the black-haired teen. Turning his head, our main character locked him down with an absolutely terrifying glare. Instantly, Thousand Changes flared to life to shift again, morphing from a massive broadsword into a swift, deadly assassin dagger. You and I can hear the mage screaming that the weapon had morphed once again. No one could believe their eyes, but let's watch together as our main character instantly destroys that giant orc. Group leader was totally lost, watching this guy summon a legendary weapon unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. Everyone stared at the bloody corpse of the massive orc, which had a dagger driven straight into its chest. Never imagining he would defeat it in a single strike, our hero called back Thousand Changes. The weapon immediately answered its master. Dagger shot out from the beast's chest, flying straight into the dark-haired boy's hand, as he smiled in total satisfaction. Meanwhile, the nearby warriors could not stop whispering about this incredibly mind-blowing power, the weapon and the kid himself. Returning it to normal, our main character gave it a shake and stared at them, shutting them up completely with just a single glance. He quietly scratched his head. Kaiser apologized for getting carried away and killing the monsters, thinking they would strike first and steal their prey. But they just laughed, saying they already had enough loot. They looked away, muttering a simple "I see." Right at that moment, several more beasts burst from the thick forest brush, rushing straight toward our main character. Watching his new prey approach, Kaiser started to brandish Thousand Changes, spinning the blade incredibly fast in his hand, and suddenly he takes his stance. Because what comes next is an absolute monster massacre. The air grew thick with the heavy scent of blood, and a mountain of fallen orcs lay piled around the boy. He complained that it was not enough, demanding they send way more orcs for him to fight. But looking around, he realized nobody was left. The Guardian explained that after clearing the area, the others had fled. Hero shouted at Black, complaining he could not handle everything alone when there were so many insanely strong beasts. Suddenly, he spotted 2 green-skinned creatures slipping away, pointed them out, warning that they had spotted him and were fleeing deep into the thick forest, seeing them fear him like an absolute predator. Thinking about how much he had improved since his final trial in Raven, that legendary weapon he received as a reward turned out to be far more lethal than he ever expected. Pulling out his muscles, he suggested it might be best to take a quick break and slow things down. Jihad agreed, since the others deserved a chance to hunt too. Suddenly, Kaiser's entire expression changed. Not get why he should share his precious loot. Right then, Thousand Changes began transforming into Raven's black spear. And yeah, you and I both know he will not stop until he secures that rank S graduation. Right after saying this, he started tearing through orcs left and right, leaving them with absolutely zero chance to escape. He was not leaving a single monster alive, erasing everything in his path. Then the counter hit 127. Shortly after, it climbed to 162, then 208, reaching 249 in minutes. Terrified beasts scrambled to escape our main character, but he had zero intention of stopping, brutally shredding them without mercy. Now, orcs were no longer roaring in rage, but begging for mercy. Suddenly, a heavy exhaustion brought the boy to a halt, and was almost over. Only 3 minutes remained on the clock. Exhausted, the dark-haired boy muttered that was enough for today. Hearing this, the final orc let out a massive sigh of relief. Out of nowhere, Kaiser attacked again, shouting that he needed just one more kill to reach exactly 250. However, the Eye of Truth suddenly activated, causing his eyes to flare with a brilliant and intense yellow light. Stopped dead, wondering what was going on. Landed beside him, and standing up began yelling at him to stop being so impatient and stay still for at least 1 minute. Dark-haired hero interrupted him, pointing into the distance and asking if he could see that red glow on the big rock. His protector stared intently toward the spot his master was pointing at. Still, no matter how hard he strained his eyes, he saw absolutely nothing. Thinking if it glowed, it had to be something major, Kaiser started climbing. In the top beside him, Black asked what the big deal was. The boy realized that finally, after such a long time, his Eye of Truth had actually activated again. He felt certain that it hid a massive secret, even holding on to the hope that it was a fragment of the truth. The moment his skin brushed it, an agonizing pain shot through him, forcing him to yank his hand back with a frustrated cry. And there you have it, the system unlocks a hidden clue. Stay with me to find out what happens next in this crazy story. Come along with me, because as our main character grabs the item, a sinister aura starts bleeding off his distant guardian. And trust me, Black is absolutely not happy about this. Right at that moment, the window pops up warning that there are only 10 seconds left before logging out, which instantly puts him in a terrible mood. The Guardian starts screaming, demanding to know what the issue is if his master is already leaving, about himself and Eliza, but the little goblin couldn't even finish his sentence before he started getting teleported too. The system alerts that Eliza and Jihad Black are sent to the waiting room. Meanwhile, the tiny goblin spawns right in the woods looking around in panic. The waiting room, a safe haven of rest. By rule, every single guardian gets a room to rest safely in total peace and quiet until their master finally makes his return. This is only his second time in this chamber, which is why everything still feels so incredibly strange to him. Out of nowhere, he whispers that this is their first meeting in 150 years, getting even more anxious before he can even ask how she is. Tears stream down his face. No idea when his master will return. All he wants is to tightly hug his beloved spider once again. Desperately bawls about wanting to cuddle and sleep next to the soft Eliza, when suddenly he spots a small cabin right ahead of him. Creeping closer, he racks his brain, trying to remember if this building had ever been here before. In the end, he realizes this place is a carbon copy of the old home where he spent his days. Opening the door, waves of nostalgia completely wash over him. Curious how this house got here, he steps inside to relive those precious memories. But watch closely here. The moment he crosses the threshold, he gets a massive shock, finding a tiny spider waiting for him right on the table. In that exact moment, the goblin's crying completely stops, giving way to a huge ecstatic smile. Eliza the spider replies with that very same joyful expression. Meanwhile, our main character finally climbs out of his gaming capsule, stretching his muscles in the real world. Though he hoped to farm 250 items, he fell short. Suddenly, a mouth-watering aroma hits his nose, instantly grabbing his full attention. Stepping out, he sees his little sister eating at the table. Wasting no time, he creeps over with an innocent face, showering her with compliments to get some food. Him down instantly, making it clear she isn't sharing a single bite. With a mischievous smirk, our main character screams a ridiculous combat move and dives straight for his sister's plate. Girl flawlessly blocks his strike, saving her precious meal by a hair. In defeat, he jokes that this female orc is way too strong, while she fires back by calling him a hopeless loser. She demands he snap back to reality, reminding him that he's nothing but a total failure when it comes to video games. I know what you're thinking. She has absolutely no clue who he really is. Instead, he asks if she's even watched him play or knows about his main quest. Completely ignoring his words, she asks if he's joined a guild yet, but he flatly responds that he has absolutely zero interest in any of them. Laffy seems like him, asking if any actual recruiter would even bother looking at him. Gritting his teeth, the guy yells back that it doesn't matter, because sooner or later he's going to be number one. Just shrugs, insisting he'll never make it without joining the top guilds, let alone without having the charisma of those massive streaming stars. Emphasizes that he doesn't have 100 million YouTube views, but the brother yells that he will make it before storming off to his room, leaving her totally baffled by his sudden burst of confidence. However, our main character doesn't answer and just keeps walking away, but he pulls a quick spin and snatches some food, triggering her absolute fury. Shortly after, we find him sitting in front of his PC. Couldn't believe she dared to push his buttons like that. He was absolutely determined to show her what he can really do. He figures he needs to check his uploaded video right away to see if it's actually trending on the platform. So he logs onto social media and searches for what's trending by typing in the name of the game. And the exact second he hits search, his face completely freezes as he sees himself right there on the screen. The Return of the Legendary Kaiser is the title, already pulling in over 1 million views. And while he silently tries to process all of this, the entire gaming community starts erupting into absolute chaotic madness. Across the forums, crowds are debating the return of Kaiser, certain that only he could have cleared that S-rank quest. Rumors about his presence in the Stone Forest spread like wildfire, triggering a massive server-wide search for our main character. They're talking about Kaiser in Demrock. You and I will definitely see how this madness plays out. Get ready, because we are about to see our main character shake up the gaming world. Rumors said Kaiser vanished because he hated guilds. Recruiters mobilized instantly. Guild leaders simply couldn't believe this random kid was flat out rejecting every single one of their offers. And dealing with a god-level solo player, it's easy to hit a wall trying to understand what's actually going on in his head. Hero Guild leader insisted that Kaiser had decided to challenge every guild in the game at once. Our main character was completely shocked to see the massive amount of information circulating about him. The more he read, the less he understood when he had ever said he hated guilds so much. Thinking about it, they kind of had a point. So he decided to ride the hype and upload a quick, badly edited video. After uploading the video, he went to sleep, feeling like he had finally hopped on the fast track to success. He wondered how many views he needed to monetize, and dreamed of buying a Ferrari, then remembered he didn't even have a license. And so, dreaming of his future riches, he fell fast asleep until the next morning. Waking up, he grabbed his phone with shaking hands and opened YouTube. Watch closely to see what happens when he logs in. Couldn't believe his eyes. His channel had almost 800,000 subscribers, and the video cleared 4 million views. It felt like a dream. Comments, views, and new followers were skyrocketing with every single second that passed. A massive satisfied grin spread across his face, burst out laughing, and immediately yelled to his sister, to brag about his new fame. Rushed out of his room, he got smacked dead in the forehead with a giant cooking ladle. His mother, looking incredibly annoyed, asked him why he was making such a loud scene first thing in the morning, sending him straight to eat. Rubbing his head, he asked about Hane, but his mother reminded him it was Friday and she was at school. Still scratching his head, he stepped aside as his mom yelled from the kitchen, demanding to know if he was going to eat. The guy replied he'd eat later, promising to buy his mom some high-grade beef very soon to make up for it. Without a second thought, our main character hopped right back into his capsule and logged straight into the game. Overwhelmed with joy, he decided to upload another video to lock in his position and build a truly global audience. The system notified him that his guardian Jihad's loyalty had increased, which triggered the awakening of his other guardian, Eliza. Right then, Jihad Black stepped out of the portal, thrilled to see his master. Though Kaiser noticed his sassy attitude, the goblin proudly defended himself. He noticed his appearance had changed, and the little goblin was absolutely thrilled to receive praise from his master. "I'm sure you noticed it too. Eliza has completely changed colors, and she's wearing a weird collar on her neck now." Black explained that while they were resting in the guard room, Eliza's body suddenly started glowing and transformed colors. On top of that, she was wearing her favorite collar, which they had actually found right inside that very room. Our lead couldn't comprehend how they ended up in the same place, let alone how they managed to find that accessory there. Gently patting Eliza, Jihad mentioned that the accessory seemed to be a reward for the spider's exceptionally good behavior. He had no idea how this useless goblin influenced Eliza so much. Suddenly, human shouts rang out, announcing they had finally located Kaiser. Instantly, a massive crowd rushed to the spot, whispering about the legendary player while mocking his weak-looking guardian. Our main character had no intention of giving them explanations, simply turned around ready to walk away. A barrage of offers started flying instantly. Every single guild wanted to recruit him, promising the absolute best perks possible. Noticing his complete indifference, they quickly surrounded him, with absolutely no intention of letting him escape. His guardian had no clue what was happening, and our main character wasn't a fan of all this unwanted attention either. Forcing a fake smile, he admitted that escaping his sudden fame seemed completely impossible, joked about them never seeing a celebrity before, and offered to take pictures. But the crowd had very different plans. It seemed that the guy was still a pretty low level, yelling that they needed to capture him at all costs. The black-haired boy sighed in frustration, seeing his trick had failed. Suddenly, a bright flash of light materialized into a silver shield. Dropping into a combat stance, Kaiser yelled that the photos would just have to wait for later. Gritting his teeth, he threw it back. Ready for the next episode?